Chapter 511. Now, River Styx was the only one in the Blood River Matrix. He was facing dozens of powerful cultivators outside the Matrix, all of whom were powerful enemies who risked their lives against him. Yet, he did not seem to care as he talked and laughed. He was still as arrogant as before, holding his two murderous weapons and treating these people like ants. It was as if he was not facing the siege of many enemies, but was trying to kill everyone here with his own strength. Such a dignified bearing made it impossible for anyone to underestimate him. Everyone recalled his killing spree and had to admit that River Styx had the ability to say such words. The venerable poisonous dragon's bloody life was here, and no one could refute his ability to kill Xian Yuan the Great. Chen Ong pointed his finger, and Yuan Tu's and Avicii's blood-red sword lights turned into two long rainbows that resembled rivers of blood and pierced into the group of heretics. They were blocked by Xian Yuan Old Monster's 7 Fiends' mystical, in-heavenly net demonic light. He vaguely felt an invisible force trying to stop the two sword lights, but the flying swords turned and moved 100 feet away, almost cutting Xian Yuan Old Monster in half. However, because the demonic light enveloped Xian Yuan the Great's dozens of acres of land, the surrounding demonic light froze like glue when Yuan Tu and Avicii's swords came out of the void. The sword slowed down and gave Xian Yuan Old Monster time to move. Chen Ong saw that the flying swords were useless, but he managed to get some information about the 7 Fiends' mystical, heavenly net demonic light. Originally, the Samadhi demonic true fire was the best way to restrain it, but it was a sign of his main identity. There were many hidden dangers if he took it out, so he could only settle for the next best thing. He waved his hand and released the red lotus karmic fire. An acre of fire cloud surged forth and destroyed the old monster's demonic light. Xian Yuan Fuwang only touched a little bit of it, but he felt that he had triggered Nameless. The anxiety in his primordial spirit was almost uncontrollable. Wherever the fire burned, even the body of the blood god could not get rid of it. He had no choice but to ruthlessly cut off the part of the blood shadow that he touched and watched it turn into ashes. Unexpectedly, this little bit of karmic fire followed the meridians of his breath and moved to him, triggering the karmic fire that he had accumulated over the years. For a moment, it triggered the anxiety in his vital spirit, which turned into the inner demon burning heart, burning his 7 orifices to the point that devil fire spurted out. Under the attack from both inside and outside, his vital spirit was almost exhausted, forcing Xian Yuan Fuwang to turn into a bloody shadow and fly away. In a shapeless blood shadow, the red lotus karmic fire was like maggots on bones, entangling him. Only then did Xian Yuan Old Monster know that he had met his nemesis. On the other side, River Styx's sword light flashed and killed another person. The foundation of the Blood River Formation was not touched, but the blood cloud spread and the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation was pressuring them from the outside. Unlike the Righteous Path, which had the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation to secretly protect them, the heterodox demons could not advance or retreat. They had to be careful of the White Bone Demon's claws and Shapeless Sky Demon's attacks. If they were not careful, someone would be captured by the Appearance Sky Demon and the White Bone Demon God and dragged into the Blood River. There were also people who were ambushed by the Formless Sky Demon, the 5 Lust of Heaven, and the 7 Emotions Demon God. They fell into the Blood Cloud and fell into the Blood River Formation, dying instantly. Not only did half of the people of the heterodox path die in an instant, but under the protection of the seniors of the Righteous Path, there were also people who suddenly went berserk under the protection of the Buddha's light. They turned into blood shadows and pounced on the people around them. The 2 sword lights that Chen Ong released were even more lethal weapons. Ordinary demonic path experts did not have the mana that Xian Yuan the Great had. Even if they released demonic lights and treasures to protect themselves, they would still be killed along with the treasures and demonic lights. A blood light flashed and 1 person died. His corpse fell into the blood river like dumplings. In a few breaths, he turned into a blood light and went out to suck the blood of others. These blood shadows and blood lights were killed by ascetic Duda's shapeless sword and refined by immortal nun Exion's Buddha's light. In an instant, they were reborn in the blood river. They were immortal and indestructible. River Styx scattered red lotuses, and the hellfire Lianhua bloomed all over the blood river. On the 800 miles of meandering river, countless bloodlights, devils, and inner devils struggled to fly out from the blood river. They turned into the appearance of the sky demon and eroded all the mana in the formation. Even the big and small silk Buddha's Dharma, which was released by immortal nun Exion Rue using the supreme Dharma of Buddhism, was eroded and gnawed away by these endless devils. Within a radius of 10 million miles, a single stray thought of all sentient beings would transform into a devil above the blood river. Billions of living beings had endless stray thoughts. Above the blood river, there were endless demons and devils. Unless immortal nun Exion Rue could purify the stray thoughts of billions of living beings, how could she kill all these demons? Another 36 formless sky demons appeared with the obsession of all living beings. Each of them was like a sky demon with endless supernatural powers and boundless mana. The blood river transformed into the 9 heavens and 10 earths, the celestial palaces and hell. There were 36 gods and devils who transformed into the myriad of living beings. The celestial music and Buddhist chants came from the celestial palaces and the devils from hell. Within 10 breaths, they infected dozens of cultivators of the righteous and evil path. They threw themselves into the 9 heavens and 10 earths and turned into the celestial ladies, celestial generals, and devils from hell. Outside the formation, Yi Jing was dumbfounded. She cried out, 9 heavens and 10 earths formless void, demon formation. Only then did she know that what Chenong said was true. Her heart was filled with remorse and hatred. She faintly received many stray thoughts of devils. The sky demon sensed into her primordial spirit. When it saw a devil who looked similar to its elder brother suffering in hell, it lost control of its heart and soul. The beer demon fire suddenly exploded. A devil shadow with the same face as one of the 36 gods quietly appeared in her ocean of consciousness. It chanted a devil scripture and slowly destroyed her foundation. It eliminated the divine light of beer and soul. Seeing that Yi Jing's Tao foundation was about to fall, the devil voice in her ocean of consciousness was about to transform her into a devil. A big hand quietly tapped on the center of her brows, and a sigh was heard. Silly child. The Tai Ching celestial light turned, and countless devils on her beer were refined like silk cocoons. After a few breaths, the sky demon sensed it and smiled mysteriously. It disappeared into thin air and returned to the celestial demon diagram with a little wisdom and spirituality of Yi Jing, turning into the essence of one of the sky demons. Yi Jing's face turned pale, and she came to her senses. The big hand had already disappeared without a trace. If it was not for the Tai Ching celestial light that was still stationed in her beer, Yi Jing would have thought that everything was just an illusion when she was possessed by the devil. When she sensed her primordial spirit, her foundation was greatly damaged. Almost all of her achievements in this lifetime were stolen by the sky demon. Almost half of the foundation that she had built over several lifetimes was destroyed. In this lifetime, in the celestial Tao diagram, it was like flowers in a mirror or the moon in the water. Only then could she make up for it with amazing hard work and opportunities. Only then could she attempt to ascend. Otherwise, she would have to reincarnate for another lifetime. At this moment, in the yellow river of 9 bends, almost all of the young cultivators from the right and evil path were dead or injured. There were only a few cultivators from the right path, and there were only 2 cultivators from the left path. This also confirmed what Chenong had said previously. 9 out of 10 of them will suffer. It was hard to describe how tragic it was. River Styx sat in the protection of countless gods and demons. He stepped on the red lotus of hellfire and spat out countless golden blade, demonic fire, demonic light, and dark thunder. The surrounding wind, earth, water, and fire were all in chaos. Endless astral wind and earth spirits, Golden blade, demonic fire, dark thunder, and demonic light rolled around in the true water domain. They were born and died, presenting a hellish scene. The golden blade of 1,000 transformations was invincible and as sharp as the tip of a superior flying sword. It was endless and could be destroyed as it came and went. It could easily turn into 1,000 blades and cut into thousands of pieces. It specialized in breaking the mana of the body. The demonic light shook the mind and enchanted the soul. It silently corroded the bones and drained the chi of essence. The demonic sound and divine thunder danced nonstop. As it flashed, it reflected the red light and turned into a strange color. It was very beautiful. However, if it came into contact with it, it would be like thousands of mother and child bombs exploding at the same time. In an instant, it could blast a huge mountain into pieces. Coupled with the two great weapons, Avicii and UN2, they really had the power to kill gods and demons. It took over a dozen seniors of the righteous path to join hands to protect their juniors from the two demonic formations and the endless magic. The remaining members of the devil path were all bitterly struggling, desperately begging for a way to survive. Xinyuan Dharmaraja forcibly suppressed the red lotus karmic fire on his body and did his best to fight against the 72 divine demons. The black and golden light was torn to pieces, and he had to face the even more terrifying harassment of the 36 divine demons. He saw River Styx and shouted, "Old demon River Styx, on account that we are all from the diabolism, let me go. Otherwise, we will kill each other and let the people of the righteous path benefit. Today, if you show mercy and let me go, I will definitely respect you in the future. If you still want to kill me, I will fight you to the death." Chapter 512. When Xinyuan the Great said this, his tone was urgent and sincere, like a cuckoo crying blood. His voice traveled far and wide. His words were not only meant for River Styx, but also for everyone else present. He was hinting at River Styx's tyrannical way of doing things. Without the lips, the teeth would be interdependent. He was not referring to anything else, but whether or not River Styx would attack the others after killing him. The urgency of his shout and the despair in his tone made the others in the Blood River Matrix, such as Ascetic Duda, Heart like Divine Nun, the 7 sons of Mount Lee, and the rest feel a chill in their hearts. They were even more wary of River Styx. Even so, no one dared to stop River Styx from killing countless people. This was not only because of River Styx's prowess in killing, but also because of the difference between good and evil. Xinyuan the Great shouted 3 times. He turned his head to look at his surroundings, but all he saw was silence. Not to mention the people of the righteous path. Even the people of the demonic path were holding their breaths, not daring to respond. He could not help but laugh into the sky, and a sense of loneliness and desolation rose in him. He laughed maniacally and said, "My ending today will be a lesson for all of you in the future. River Styx, will there be no descendants of the initiator?" River Styx did not wait for him to continue. A black gourd appeared above the blood cloud above his head. On the gourd sat a 3-inch tall golden cicada with eyebrows and eyes. As the gourd turned, the golden cicada disappeared in a flash. Xinyuan the Great's body had suddenly turned into a bloody shadow. His face, which was covered in bloody light, was filled with shock and disbelief. "Xinyuan the Great, you have the body of the blood god. Normal treasures and spells would not be able to harm you. Why are you acting like a child? You've become a laughing stock." River Styx smiled faintly and said, "Before this, you probably did not think that I would be able to kill you. You're just cautious by nature, and you wanted to use this opportunity to plot against me. That's why you're acting like you're at the end of your road. Unfortunately, I am the nemesis of this spell of yours. My Mystic E number 25 Soul Slasher specializes in killing primordial spirit Ean demons. It's a magic art I specially refined for the Blood God's immortal technique in the Blood God mantra. In order to prevent you from being reborn in other sons of Blood God's body, I borrowed the principle of the first acquired killing technique to kill your 1,695 sons of Blood God's incarnations at the same time. Even though this magic art is flawed, you only have a slim chance of survival now." River Styx smiled and said, Brother Xianyuan, it's time for you to die." As soon as he finished speaking, the 9 heavenly palaces and the 10 levels of hell suddenly collapsed into a scroll and fell into River Styx's hands. As River Styx unfolded the celestial demon drawing, Xianyuan Old Monster's blood shadow primordial spirit could no longer be maintained. It turned into a spot of blood light and entered the celestial demon drawing. The celestial demon's secret technique also attracted more than 1,000 illusionary clones of the blood god. They followed Xianyuan Old Monster's breath and attracted all the evil children and evil grandchildren who had cultivated the blood god mantra. The blood light fell like rain into the celestial demon, drawing one by one, becoming nutrients for the celestial demon's growth. After taking the lives of Xianyuan Old Monster's Western Kongtong orthodoxy, River Styx counted on his fingers. Among Xianyuan the Great's clan, only 1 or 2 escaped. They were scared out of their wits and could not cause any trouble. The Western Kongtong orthodoxy of demonic path had come to an end. The Venerable of 5 Obsessions, who was further away, seemed to be scared out of his wits. However, Chunong could feel that the spot of blood light in the Venerable of 5 Obsessions, whose consciousness was controlled by him, was transforming and being reborn. Xianyuan Old Monster had left a backup plan in the Venerable of 5 Obsessions. The spot of blood light quickly absorbed the Venerable of 5 Obsessions' blood god Dharma power and grew. It even tried to erase the Venerable of 5 Obsessions' consciousness. Unfortunately, the Venerable of 5 Obsessions' consciousness had long been erased by Chunong. What was left was a living bait to lure Xianyuan Old Monster into the trap. Chunong's heart was filled with mockery. He transmitted his consciousness over and said, "Xianyuan Old Monster, River Styx has been waiting here for a long time." As soon as he finished speaking, he activated the Blood River Dharma power. The 49 Blood Sea True talismans suddenly refined the Venerable of 5 Obsessions completely. At the same time, Xianyuan the Great's consciousness was refined into a blood god. The direct confrontation of consciousness made Xianyuan the Great come to a sudden realization. "River Styx, why are you so proficient in the Blood God Sutra? Could it be that you were the one who taught me the Blood God Sutra?" River Styx shook his head and smiled. "If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to keep your consciousness intact, would I have allowed you to live until today? If I didn't refine you into a blood god, would you have told me what I wanted? I'm sorry, I broke my promise. Venerable poisonous dragon, it's better for you to die alone. I have other uses for your soul." He transmitted these words through his consciousness. However, in the eyes of the others, River Styx smiled and kept his promise to the Venerable of 5 Obsessions. He melted the Venerable of 5 Obsessions into a ball of bloody light and shrunk it into the shape of a pearl. He placed it in River Styx's hand. Yuan-Tu and Avicii's swords hovered above River Styx's head. They trembled slightly and pointed at the rest of the people present. River Styx stepped on the Blood River formation. The red lotus of karmic fire fell continuously from River Styx's body. They drifted and burned, turning into sparks around him. They carried with them the ashes of the tribulation and a hint of murderous intent. I love to chop people's heads the most in my life. I haven't stopped for 23 years. My swords never return to their sheaths. I want to dye the universe with blood. River Styx played with his sword and sang. He smiled and said to the people around him, "My friends, the overseas calamity has entered its final phase. Chun Daoyu is unwilling to attack me together with the others. However, his physical body has been suppressed by me, so he still has to fight one more round to complete this calamity. If there's nothing else, you may leave this place." He opened up the Blood River formation and made a path. At the same time, Yuan-Tu and Avicii were still hovering above his head. It looked like they could choose whether to retreat or face the calamity again. Immortal Nun Xian Rue was the first to admit defeat. She sighed and said, "I'm not from this world. My friend River Styx has not committed too many sins. Although his murderous nature is too strong, I really don't want to interfere. I think the heavenly devil that was born was my friend River Styx himself." Immortal Nun Xin Rue revealed the shocking inside story. River Styx smiled and did not answer, as if he had silently agreed. Immortal Nun Xin Rue sighed. She asked Chenong to open up a path and left. Ascetic Duda protected his back and said to River Styx, "If my friend restrains your disciples and does not commit evil deeds, Ame will not make things difficult for you." Seeing that River Styx smiled faintly and did not reply, he pondered for a few breaths and left with a group of righteous juniors who had suffered heavy casualties. The 7 friends of Mount Lee and Red Staff, Celestial Child, stood side by side. Red Staff, Celestial Child, took a step forward and said, "I wonder if you are related to a drought demon, corpse demon that my esteemed teacher, Reverend Red Staff, Celestial Child." He was a senior cultivator from the Pre-Qin dynasty whose Taoist name was Solitary Housey. River Styx smiled and said, "After Solitary Housey died, he became Drought Demon, but Drought Demon is not Solitary Housey. Drought Demon degenerated into a supreme heavenly devil, but heavenly devil is not Drought Demon. From birth to death, from death to life, River Styx is born. Therefore, Solitary Housey is Solitary Housey and River Styx is River Styx. Although they were once one, they are now 2 people. The karma of the past has nothing to do with River Styx." Chapter 513. The battle between River Styx and the immortals of the righteous and evil path was truly mesmerizing and frightening. Many people outside the formation only saw the golden knife devil fire, the heavenly demon thunder, and the endless illusions. Then, they saw many cultivators inside the formation suffering misfortune. These people inside the formation were even more ashamed of having narrowly escaped death. Their hearts were still thumping nonstop. The new righteous cultivators, who had been scared out of their wits, retreated. When they saw Chun Ong standing at the side with his banner, they were both embarrassed and angry. They did not care about their previous rescue and instead felt resentful. It was not that they did not know that Chun Ong was a senior with incredible mana and had once fought against the old demon River Styx. However, as a righteous cultivator, Chun Ong was not like the old demon River Styx, who killed wantonly. He had many scruples in his actions. Their background and elders were useless in front of the old demon River Styx. He would kill them if he wanted to. Even if their fathers and elders came personally, they would die. However, in front of Chun Ong, they thought for no reason that Chun Ong should give face to their elders and masters. The man dressed as a scholar was lucky enough to escape death, but he lost an arm. His body was covered in blood, and he was in a sorry state. At this moment, he was using severed spiritual medicine to reattach his arm. When he saw Chun Ong standing calmly at the side, he could not help but feel resentful. He said loudly, "Senior, you are so brave. When we were fighting the old demon River Styx, we did not see you. Now that we have come out of the demonic formation, we can see you here. Earlier, you said that you were old friends with the River Styx. I wonder if you did not want to interfere because of your old friendship. So you let us go." His words were sinister, encouraging the people around him who were lucky enough to escape to suddenly feel a common hatred for the enemy. They had the intention to reverse the course of events, to destroy Chun Ang's reputation, to give him the bad name of an unorthodox and eccentric person. How could Chun Ong not know this person's plan? But his vision was worlds apart from these rising stars. Although he did not care about their schemes, nor did he care about their lives, but since they had offended him like this, he should let them have a taste of suffering, so that these rising stars would know that old Master Chen's temper was not to be trifled with, lest any Tom, Dick, or Harry would come to provoke him in the future. He smiled and said, "Earlier, I calculated that you would die in this calamity, but now you have escaped. What kind of logic was this? Fortunately, you are shrouded in blood clouds, your glabella is dark, and you look like you are about to die. I should have to trouble this young master to personally send you to face the calamity." As soon as he finished speaking, he rolled up the long banner and controlled the formation to move him into the Blood River formation. On the other side, the River Styx and Chun Ong had a telepathic connection. With a scream, he had already been sent to reincarnation. Chenong glanced at the few people who had been stirring up trouble. He shook his head and smiled. Unfortunately, my hand slipped, and I accidentally sent that fellow Taoist into the Devil's Denver. However, I have always been meticulous in my calculations, and my divinations never go wrong. Last time, I said that everyone here would face the calamity, but look, I still had to trouble the old devil, River Styx, to make a move. This time, the one who did not calculate correctly is me. Although I have no enmity with him, this is fate, and I can't go against the heavens. I calculated with my fingers, and that fellow Taoist just now is fated with me. He must have needed my help to disintegrate his corpse and reincarnate. So he provoked me. I have a kind heart, so I fulfilled his wish. Ascetic Duda, who was standing at the side, was also a thick-skinned and black-hearted person. Although he saw the killing intent, he did not stop it. He slowly calculated in his heart. And sure enough, what Chenong said was true. He was a person with no fortune, and an unlucky person with a bad fate. Although Chenong acted strangely, there were many elders in the righteous path who had a similar temper as him. The sage nun, the venerable Jew, and the others with extraordinary cultivation had a temper even worse than Chenong, and they had killed more people than Chenong. The Amay sect had a lot of experience in dealing with these people. Moreover, these new talents of the righteous path were actually just a few big sects from the overseas, and they could not be considered as the orthodoxy of the mystic door. Unlike Chenong, who was born as an ancient daffodil, his cultivation and mana were 10 times higher than the elders of the other sections. His orthodoxy was not inferior to the Amay sect, and he was on good terms with the Amay sect. He was also the strongest person in the overseas, and he was the person who would open the calamity of the 4 seas in the future and establish the orthodoxy of the overseas. Ascetic Duda was thick-skinned and black-hearted, and he was already the most skilled person in the Amay sect. Naturally, he would not fall out with Chenong over such a small matter. Moreover, this was the first conflict between the orthodoxy of the 4 seas, and if these big sects refused to bow to Chenong, there would be a lot of killing in the future. With the Amay sect position of never standing on the side of the losers, they naturally knew what to do. Immediately, he tried to persuade those rising stars of the righteous path, who were angry but did not dare to speak, and who were as frightened as quails. In order to prevent them from provoking Chenong again, it was hard to say whether Chenong would be in trouble or not, but if they came again, they would definitely die. Ascetic Duda would not look good either, so he simply cast a spell and teleported them hundreds of miles away. Then he said to Chenong, "Chen Daoyou's physical body is trapped in the demonic formation. Do you need our help? This old river Styx's mana is extraordinary, and I've secretly investigated him. He is the true disciple of the Azura's blood sea demonic path, and he enters the path of Tao by killing. This time, he has killed many people, and his mana has improved by another level. If you go looking for trouble with him again, I'm afraid it will be a little troublesome. Furthermore, your physical body is suppressed. Although it is convenient to use your primordial spirit, if he dug out your physical body, I'm afraid there will be many spells to harm you." Chenong thought for a moment. Although I have obtained most of what I wanted this time, and even gained many unexpected rewards, to maintain the identity of River Styx, I still need to put on a show. Furthermore, River Styx has killed countless immortals of the righteous and evil path, and can be considered to have broken through the first tribulation of the opening of the 4 seas. Originally, the immortals of the South Sea had blocked the path, and the forces of the 4 seas had come to find trouble with me. It should have been to train me and complete the transformation of the forces of the 4 seas in my hands, starting the 500-year killing tribulation of the 4 seas immortals. However, I borrowed the descent of the heavenly demon and the supreme demon body of great Azura to form the great Tao of the Blood River. I killed on behalf of the heavens, and with the advantage of not being afraid of karma, I transferred the great tribulation to the identity of River Styx, and used this identity to go on a killing spree. I killed all the immortals who blocked the path, and eradicated the tribulation from the root. However, this is, after all, a method to avoid the tribulation, and the fate energy it relies on is not stable. Based on the fate energy of the dragon vein and the mortal world, it is considered to be an unjust country, and there will be endless troubles in the future. A portion of fate energy is occupied by river Styx, and it is not stable. From the perspective of the hearts of people, it is because I have not been able to dominate the four seas, and if the hearts of people are not convinced, there will be many twists and turns in the future. If I can use this conflict with river Styx to transfer the fate energy back, it will be more beneficial. As he thought of this, he used the God-Fiend diagram in river Styx's hand to sense it. As expected, the immortals of the South Sea feared river Styx to the core, but they did not obey him. Instead, they were resentful. Previously, when that unlucky fellow provoked him, there were signs that his fate energy was not stable. Chapter 514. His thoughts raced like lightning, but he replied, "Although that old demon Styx river is quite powerful, I'm not someone to be trifled with. Although he has forced my corporeal body into the cold spring to suppress it, it's also because I have the intention to guard Senior Qi Zhang's prohibition and trap his sky demon body instead. Otherwise, if he had set up the River of Blood formation, although Senior Qi Zhang's mana is superb, the prohibition that he set up might not last for long. Unfortunately, I don't know where Xianyuan Fuwang learned a set of evil demonic methods similar to the Blood God Sutra. One of his disciples and his disciples wanted to trick the predecessor of the skyscraping devil into their trap and refine the predecessor of the skyscraping devil, Hamba, into the son of the Blood God. However, this gave the skyscraping devil an opportunity to refine him. Instead, he became the body of the skyscraping devil and the primordial spirit of Blood River. That allowed him to become the Sky Devil and break most of Senior Qi Zhang's restriction. Although I discovered it early and did not let him have his way, I also lost his Blood River primordial spirit. That's why the River Styx was born. Previously, I asked fellow Tan Yin to go to Mauname to ask for help while I went to pursue the Blood River primordial spirit, River Styx. I did not expect his cultivation to skyrocket and get rid of me. Instead, he came back and killed me. After that, this River Styx merged with the body of the Supreme Sky Devil and borrowed most of his mana, which I could not control. At that time, he had already set up the Blood River formation and collected souls and blood from everywhere to refine the most terrifying demonic treasure, the formless and formless celestial demon diagram of the 9 heavens and 10 earths. This treasure is the orthodox secret inheritance of the Sky Devil. I don't know how it fell into the hands of the Sky Devil. If I let him fuse the true inheritance of the Sky Devil in Great Azura, I'm afraid that the people in the world would be plunged into misery and suffering. I knew that it was impossible to stop him, so I played along and pretended to fall into the eye of his formation and was trapped by him. In fact, I took the opportunity to escape into the ice essence of the cold spring in the sea, and used Reverend Qi Zhang's restriction and the cold spring to trap his body so that he could not completely escape. Then, I released my primordial spirit to tangle with him so that he would not focus on controlling the formation to save the Sky Devil's body and destroy my body. Now that he has used the killing tribulation to complete 2 great demonic formations, his Tao of killing has almost reached perfection. My scheme can't do anything to him. Right now, we can only enter his devil formation and use formations to counter formations to drive him away. Chenong told the ascetic Duda about the twisted truth that turned black into white in Lianhua. As he had reversed the heavenly mystery, it seemed more believable than the truth. Although the ascetic Duda, the 7 friends of Mount Li, and the Red Staff Celestial Child were shrewd, and it was hard to tell how much of what he said was true from their faces, but they still admitted it. So it was decided to be the truth for the time being. Ascetic Duda nodded and sighed. This old River Styx's sorcery power is unparalleled. Now, he's vaguely the number 1 demonic cultivator in the 4 seas, but he only has a Blood River primordial spirit. Even a few hidden old demons of West Kunlun might not be able to match up to him. If he regains his physical body, I'm afraid that the common people will suffer and the demons will die. Fellow Taoist, for you to be able to trap him until now, It's really a great merit." These words caused the 7 friends of Mount Li to nod their heads in agreement. They smiled at Chun Ong approvingly, and Chun Ong returned the greeting. Ascetic Duda continued, "Now that River Styx has matured, as long as he doesn't commit a crime against the heavens, he's almost uncontrollable. He monopolizes the blessings of the demonic path, and his providence lasts for a long time. He also has the responsibility of initiating the tribulation of immortals and killing on behalf of the heavens. As long as he doesn't harm the mortals, his providence won't dissipate. He's the most difficult demon to deal with in the past 1,000 years. Fortunately, his providence and the demonic path's old troubles are in conflict, and the demonic path is the cause of the fall of Xianyuan the Great and the venerable poisonous dragon. But when he unifies the demonic path and gets rid of the dissidents, he'll turn around and make things difficult for us, so we have to be on guard." Chunong nodded and said, "Originally, I wanted to build a mansion here to suppress his body, so that his providence won't be complete, and if there be a flaw, so it'll be easier to subdue him in the future. But now that his providence has matured and broken through the tribulation, this plan has become useless. It's also hard to predict the will of the heavens." Chunong shook his head and sighed, his eyes filled with worry. He vividly displayed the regret and unwillingness of a righteous master who was worried about the country and the people and shouldered the fate of the world. His feelings were sincere, and his performance was moving, but it made the righteous seniors around him who couldn't understand him and had a bad impression of him look at him in new light. They secretly sighed that although he had a strange temper, he didn't lose his compassion. Their bad impression of him faded, and they had a good impression of him. When Chung of the 7 friends of Mount Li advised, the skyscraping demon monopolized the providence of the demonic path for 1,000 years, and it was sensed by the tribulation of immortals. The providence lasts for a long time, and before the tribulation is over, it's almost impossible to suppress it. He even escaped from the restriction set by Senior Reverend Redstaff. "Fellow Taoist, you've made a mistake, but it's also because of the heavens, so there's no need to be sad. Fellow Taoist Amei, ascetic monk, and I came together to trap him, but we still couldn't fight him. This shows how powerful this demon is. That venerable poisonous dragon and Xianyuan the Great are not ordinary people. Venerable poisonous dragon established the Ginshi devil cult, and Xianyuan the Great is the #1 among the evil sections. He did evil for hundreds of years, and no one could stop him, but he lost his life in front of this demon. River Styx is a fierce killer, and his providence lasts for a long time. It's really shocking." Ascetic Duda smiled bitterly and said, "Those 2 demons have done all kinds of evil, and it's supposed to be a happy thing that they've faced this tribulation. But because of this, a demon that's 10 times more powerful than them has appeared. It's really a pity." Chun Ong pinched his fingers and calculated, "This River Styx old demon has obtained a lot of blood and souls, and the celestial demon diagram is about to be completed. I'm afraid that in a few hours, he'll be able to break through the cold spring of the earth vein and retrieve my body. By then, my body will definitely be in danger. But I'll take advantage of this time when half of his attention is focused on the diagram to break through his 2 layers of formations and retrieve my body. Fellow Taoists, please hold the formation for me." The 7 friends of Mount Li sighed inwardly. Chun Ang's words meant that he didn't want them to interfere directly. They thought, Chen Daoyu is still too straightforward. This demon is so vicious. Why would he care about his face? If we advance and retreat together, wouldn't our chances of winning increase by a lot? They then saw Chun Ong smiling at them, and knew that he had accepted their kindness. They could only surround the Blood River formation and hold the formation for him. As Chun Ong stepped into the formation, the 9 Bends Yellow River formation surged even more. The formation went through a series of changes, and a surging celestial river appeared. It stretched endlessly and crossed the sky. The 5 types of true water scattered countless Isol divine thunder, Gue water divine thunder, Yuan divine thunder, Taiyin divine thunder, and by Luo divine thunder. They blasted the space within the formation into a pool of chaos. Only the Blood River Formation shrunk into a ball and protected the center tightly. A huge lianhua surrounded the Blood River and bloomed in the center of the Celestial River. No matter how the Celestial River revolved and the true water poured down, cutting off the foundation of the Blood River Formation and sealing the formation's chi meridians, the lianhua didn't budge. Old Demon River Styx was waiting at ease. After a few hours, when the formation was completed, he would retrieve his body. The few people who were watching the battle naturally thought of River Styx's plan. Another of the 7 friends of Mount Lee sighed and said, "If it wasn't for Chun Daoyu taking care of us and revealing this formation in advance, it wouldn't have been so difficult. We have implicated Chun Daoyu." The other 6 people felt slightly guilty, but ascetic Duda's eyes flickered. No one knew what he was plotting. When Chung calculated and said, "With River Styx guarding it with all his might, Chun Daoyu's formation might be extraordinary, but it will be hard to break it in a few days. With the old demon's 2 formations combined, it will take years to wear down the formation's chi of vitality. Chun Daoyu's formation can melt a heavenly immortal in 7 days, but the Blood River Formation's chi of vitality is stable, and it can communicate with the Blood Sea River Styx. It is the hardest to deal with. If we don't do anything, it will be hard for Chun Daoyu to break it." Chapter 5:15. It was no wonder that when Chung said so, it was because the formation used by the 2 people in the formation was already the best formation method in the world. The Yellow River of 9 Bends was the destiny of the 4 seas. It was used by Chun Ong to establish the 4 seas, to suppress the 4 seas and the 4-pole CI, and to unify the orthodoxy overseas. It was like the Ame Yin and Yang Dust Formation. It was the foundation and lifeline of a sect to suppress the destiny of the orthodoxy. River Styx's Blood River Formation and 9 Heavens and 9 Earths formless demonic formation represented the orthodox of the Azuric demonic path and freeform incarnation demonic path. With the Blood River Formation, River Styx had the hope of competing with Old Man Corpse Pie for the orthodox of the Azuric demonic path. With the Celestial Demon Diagram, he was now the successor of the freeform incarnation demonic path. If Grandma Geopan of the Red Body sect wanted to claim her orthodoxy as the orthodox, she would have to compete with him on the sword. Under such a stalemate, it seemed like Chun Ong also felt that it was not a solution. He changed the formation again. Chun Ong took a deep breath of genuine chi. He absorbed a bit of evil chi and mixed it with his mana. He no longer used pure water to attack. Instead, he combined it with the sea, I inside. He borrowed the power of the sea, I to swallow, and spit out the boundless seawater of the South Sea. He borrowed the power of the 4 seas to activate countless 5-color divine sand to continuously wear down the 2 formations of River Styx. Previously, under the magnetic earth vein of the Copper Coconut Island, Chun Ong collected a lot of heavy and turbid magnetic chi. He released it all this time. He sacrificed the same type of 5-color divine sand and gradually let the magnetic chi seep into the divine sand. With the power of the Yellow River Formation, he refined the thumb-sized sand in a coarse sand that was as thick as an ant's stomach. He refined it into 5-colored golden sand that was hundreds of feet deep. He had the magnetic force and could gather and disperse it at his will. With the power of the Tiani True Water, it was like a golden rain of light that covered the sky and the earth. It was wrapped in the sea current and surrounded River Styx. The surrounding pressure was as heavy as a mountain. Because it contained the earth magnetic essence chi, it was extremely sticky and entangled. Countless 5-color divine magnetism sand were gathered together by the magnetic force, mixed with the first origin heavy water, and contained a tremendous dark force. No matter what material came into contact with it, it would be entangled by this dark force, sinking into it like quicksand. This 5-color divine magnetism sand was tough and coarse, and even great unity metal would be torn apart if it was pulled into it. Water carried the power of sand, and sand borrowed the power of water. Once one came into contact with this divine magnetic sand, It would be extremely difficult to escape unless one cut off the part that had fallen into the sand. Once a flying sword was released, as long as it was refined from the essence of the 5 metals, it would immediately be bound by the 5 colored essence-fused divine sand, unable to be destroyed. More and more flying swords would be bound by the 5 colored essence-fused divine sand. If one were to become one with the sword, even the person would be swept away. Everyone watching the formation was secretly shocked. Ascetic Duda frowned deeply. This formation was very powerful, and the divine magnetic sand stretched for 100 miles, which was the best counter to his invisible sword escape. If someone used the invisible sword to fly above this formation, it would definitely cause a reaction from the divine sand. This invisible sword was also refined from the 5 metals, and once it was bound by the divine sand, not only would the original invisible sword escape be destroyed, even the person would be swept away by the divine sand. With his transcendence energy, the divine sand would only be a little troublesome, but if it caused the yellow river of 9 bends formation to react as well, and he would be dragged into it, then he would be digging his own grave. If it was his disciple, the laughing monk, not only would the yellow river of 9 bends formation be destroyed, even the divine magnetic sand would be able to destroy him. Ascetic Duda knew that the laughing monk was very arrogant. Other than those from Mount Amay, he would not even be interested in ordinary seniors from the unorthodox sections. With such a temper, if he encountered this divine sand formation, he would most likely be at a great disadvantage. He might even lose his life in it. In his heart, he had already made up his mind that he had to deal with the laughing monk, and he had to warn him again and again not to provoke Chanong Zhongzai, who was standing at the side, was also praising Chun Daoyo's yellow river of 9 bends formation is already very powerful, and with the support of the divine sand formation, the magnificent scene of the yellow river of 9 bends, 10,000 miles of sand, is truly unfathomable. With such a formation, the 7 of us can only resist it for a while. No matter how many powerful treasures you have, or how powerful your spells are, you can only last for a few breaths. With the endless godly sand being pushed and whittled away by the celestial river, even if a heaven immortal were to fall into this formation, how long can he last against such a terrifying force? Wencheng was also emotional. If not for the old demon river Styx taking advantage of the geographical advantage to set up 2 formations, how could Qin Daoyu be in a difficult situation? Unfortunately, he has already matured. The Blood River Formation and the Empty Demon Formation have a firm foundation. Even if the Yellow River of 9 Bends Formation borrows the power of the Eye of the Sea, it will not be able to shake its foundation within 7 days. After all, there is still a part of the Eye of the Sea that is borrowed by the Blood River Formation. With just the part that Chun Daoyu has, he can only gain the upper hand, but it will not be able to break its foundation. At this moment, the Divine Sand Formation was completely activated. The 72 types of godly sand, many of them blotting out the sky and the earth, while the few of them soundless, were all activated. The metamagnet godly sand, golden grain godly sand, formless godly sand, soul-dispersing godly sand, Leisure godly sand, Gale godly sand, Earth fiend godly sand, Dark End godly sand, Six desires godly sand, and White bone godly sand were all rolling and surging, surrounding the Blood River Formation. The Yellow River of 9 Bends, 10,000 miles of sand, waves and winds from the ends of the world. Now go straight to the Milky Way, to the Morning Glory and the Weaver Girl's house. Even though the 7 friends of Mount Lee, Ascetic Duda, and the young man of Heavenly Stem Mountain were just observing the formation, they were shocked by this change. Just the first layer of the metamagnet godly sand had such terrifying power. Now, with the 72 types of godly sand and the help of the 36 types of innate and acquired true water, it was truly a magnificent scene of the endless Milky Way in front of their eyes. The seniors of the righteous path and the overseas itinerant immortals and mighty figures were all shocked. They were secretly shocked by the unparalleled magical powers that Chun Ong, one righteous and one demonic, had displayed. The overseas, unorthodox sects that had not dispersed were all dazed and speechless when they saw this shocking power. They felt that their tongues were clumsy, unable to say even a fraction of the two's terrifying magical powers. The evil thoughts they had about Chun-Ong had long been thrown out of the Milky Way. Now, they could not wait to be afraid. How could they dare to have any evil thoughts? A silver light descended from the sky above the yellow river of Nine Bends Formation. The Tai Star sand rushed into the Blood River Formation and broke a gap. Then, the 36 types of acquired true water expanded the gap. The first Yuan heavy water dispersed the dense blood clouds with great force. Then, the metamagnet godly sand and the gold-grinding godly sand grinded away the thousands of acres of blood clouds outside the Blood River Formation by 30%. Chun-Ong held the Heaven Life water gonfalon in his hand and presided over the yellow river of Nine Bends Formation. As the gonfalon waved, the true water and godly sand weaved in and out like dragons and snakes, sometimes attacking and sometimes probing, forcibly suppressing the Blood River Formation of river Styx to the point that it could not move. The primordial magnetic divine sand continued to grind. Under the friction of the magnetic force, each grain carried an invisible force of Een thunder. When the endless divine sand was connected, it formed a layer of Een thunder electric net. With the help of Chun-Ang's Samadhi true fire of refining devil and the true fire of the sun that could dry up the yang of heaven and earth, Een and yang combined to form a layer of interior thunder net out of thin air. Once the faceless heavenly demon in the diagram of gods and demons moved, the interior thunder net would be bombarded. How could the faceless heavenly demons, such as the Vajra demons and the white bone demons, withstand the attack of the true water and godly sand? Even the pure gold godly sand could not withstand the endless godly sand day and night, let alone the faceless heavenly demons. After a day and night, the Blood River Formation had retreated 100 miles, leaving only half of its core area. Chapter 516. Although Chun-Ong had already gained the upper hand, he could tell from the expressions of the 7 friends of Mount Li and the ascetic Duda that the situation was still not optimistic. This was because although the great Blood River Matrix had shrunk to give up thousands of acres of land, the shrinking of its foundation actually made it more cohesive. If it only protected Chun-Ong, its power would only be greater. Chun-Ong only had 7 days, and the situation was not optimistic. A day had passed, but the number of wandering cultivators hiding in the distance had not decreased. Instead, they had increased. The wandering cultivators who had scattered out of fear of the old demon river Styx had returned to check on the situation after receiving a few messages from their good friends. If river Styx were to take root in the 4 seas, it would be a small matter for Mount Amay. However, for these wandering cultivators who had their roots in the sea, it was a disaster. These people had been killed by Mingi, and only a few of them had returned alive. However, there were many who had personally seen Mingi slaughter a sea of people and killed countless people from both the righteous and evil paths. They had learned their lesson and only dared to hide nearby. Therefore, other than a few seniors from the righteous path, there were still not many people present. Today, both sides battled. Even people like ascetic Duda, who were close to ascension, were shocked. The wandering cultivators from the sea felt like they were in an illusion. They could not believe that this was a supernatural power possessed by a cultivator. However, they were right. Of the 2 people in the formation, one had the body of the supreme sky devil, and the other had the fruit of the primordial daffodil. They were no longer mortals. Just as the 7 friends of Mount Li were worried about Chun-Ong, a golden rainbow rose from the yellow river formation of the Nine Bends. It carried Chun-Ong to face River Styx. Both sides were separated by 200 miles of the Blood River. Chun-Ong smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist River Styx, we have fought many times, but we have never met. This is interesting." The overseas immortals who were hiding in the dark were shocked. They looked at Chun-Ong in shock, wanted to see Chun-Ang's face. It was only then that they realized that this was not the first time the 2 of them had fought. They secretly wondered who Chun-Ong was to have such magical power to be able to fight against River Styx, a peerless devil and a ferocious person. It was not that they doubted Chun-Ang's abilities. Although they had not seen the power of the Yellow River Formation as clearly as the seven friends of Mount Lee, they had seen some of its power. They knew that even if all the overseas immortals charged at it together, they would not be able to be easily killed by one of the two. However, River Styx's infamy was deeply ingrained in everyone's hearts. In their hearts, he was already an unparalleled demon of the Azuro world's level. The red lotus above the river of blood bloomed, and River Styx sat on the lotus platform. His eyes were half closed, and his gaze was awe-inspiring. Although most of his gaze was on Chun-Ang, when he looked at the others from the corner of his eyes, it was like a cold and sharp sword. It was cold and inhuman. When it landed on the overseas itinerant cultivators, their hearts trembled in fear. Their bodies suddenly tensed up, and they did not dare to move. They were afraid that they would attract the attention of this unparalleled devil. Their swords came from hundreds of miles away, and Yuan-Tu and Avicii took their lives. Fortunately, River Styx did not seem to pay too much attention to them. He smiled at Chun-Ang and said, "In the past, I cultivated to the position of skyscraping demon by chance. I underestimated you and only spoke to you as a shadow. After that, you sealed my corporeal body, and I only had a bit of primordial spirit left to escape. You chased me for over 300,000 miles, and I was almost forced into a dead end. I was in a constant state of anxiety, and I did not dare to see you with my face. I only escaped in a bloody light. After that, I set up a formation to trap you, and I hid in the formation as well. I did not dare to face you until I trapped your corporeal body, and only then did I have equal mana. Now that I've borrowed the disaster of killing, my mana has improved again, and I dare to meet you again. Come to think of it, this is really the first time we have met. Fellow Taoist is a genius. In the past, you were despicable, and it was just a moment of bad luck." Chun-Ang laughed and replied, and sighed, "It is a pity that we appreciate each other, but because of our opposing fates, we always have to go against each other. Today is the first time we meet, and we still have to fight to the death. Fellow Taoist trapped my corporeal body, and I trapped fellow Taoist's skyscraping demon body. This time, we have to fight to see who is stronger." River Styx suddenly suggested, "As long as fellow Taoist swears not to make things difficult for me, I will open up a path and let fellow Taoist take my corporeal body. How about that?" His suggestion shocked the seven friends of Mount Lee and ascetic Buddha. They were afraid that Chun-Ang would agree to it just like that. There were no overnight grudges among cultivators. As long as it was not an enemy that blocked their path, or a mortal grudge, there was nothing they could not let go of. However, if Chun-Ang really made peace with River Styx, and he, the master of the Four Seas fate, would not make things difficult for River Styx, then among the overseas immortals, no one could stop that peerless demon. The young man from Heavenly Gone's sect was about to say something, but he was stopped by the ascetic monk. "Fellow Taoist, you don't have to do this. What fellow Taoist Chun does it need us to criticize him? If Chun Daoyu let go of this grudge, it is reasonable. We cannot force him to do anything because of our personal opinions." Chun-Ang was silent for a long time. Not only did ascetic Buddha and the seven friends of Mount Lee secretly pay attention, even the overseas immortals who were hiding at the side were anxious. Unknowingly, they had already started to rely on Chun-Ang. Some of them saw him as a great support for the overseas immortals. This was because River Styx was fierce. Without Chun-Ang's protection, it was hard to say who would be the leader, and whether they could keep their lives was another matter. This was human nature, and it was also the reason for Chun-Ang's calculations. Without River Styx forcing him, there would be a lot of trouble if he wanted to take the hearts of the Four Seas immortals. Even if his mana was boundless, it would be hard for him to convince these people. However, now that he had River Styx, those who were not convinced could die. He was silent for a long time before he sighed. "Fellow Taoist River Styx, I appreciate your kindness. However, after all, our paths are different and we cannot work together. I wish to open the eyes of the Four Seas and create all living beings. I cannot tolerate fellow Taoists creating the four C's, killing tribulation, and slaughtering fellow Taoists. In the end, we still have to talk about it with the sword. Behind Chunong, the 12 primordial waterscape swords turned into sword gleams and hovered behind his head. 12 circles of watercolored sword gleams floated up and down, and he stepped on dozens of golden ships of creation. The waterscape sword gleams were restrained, and they were only about a foot long. Compared to the two ferocious demonic weapons beside river sticks that were spitting blood, they looked much less imposing. This caused the spectating immortals to panic. Only ascetic Buddha and a few others could see that the waterscape sword gleams were all-encompassing, vaguely transforming into the 12 heavens. They were not inferior to the two ferocious swords of Yuan-Tu and Avicii. The two people in the formation were already determined to kill. Once River Styx's sword gleams appeared, they were thousands of feet long, and their imposing manner was unparalleled. The sword gleams were sharp, and it was the best killing sword technique. With the Blood River Formation as a cover, it really had unpredictable power. In comparison, Chun Ang's 12 primordial waterscape swords used a sword formation to counter it. It was ingenious, and the sword gleams were simple and crude. It looked like he was at a disadvantage, but in reality, he had the upper hand. Moreover, the Yellow River of Nine Bends formation was unleashed once again. Countless divine sand penetrated through every opening, and it suppressed and whittled away the foundation of the Blood River Formation. The small Blood Sea, which was 800 miles wide, was surrounded by the Milky Way. The 72 divine sand were like dragons and snakes, floating and unmoving in the Milky Way, strangling the gods, demons, and blood clouds and blood rivers. Chapter 517. The sword light of the 12 celestial water scenery sword trembled, transforming into a myriad of phenomena. River Styx sat in the middle of the formation, protected by the blood lotus formed by the river of blood formation. The Lianhua was born and died, withering and flourishing unpredictably. River Styx sat on the lotus platform, as though he was in a different world from Chun Ong. Ordinary sword techniques would not be able to injure him. Even touching the corner of his clothes would be an insurmountable chasm. One had to have a sword technique that could traverse the two worlds and travel seamlessly in order to be worthy of battling with River Styx in the River of Blood Formation. Among the spectators, only ascetic Buddha and the boy from Tianqian Mountain were qualified. The Taiching Mystic Door had the formless sword technique, which was the most superior sword technique of the Taiching Mystic Door. Ascetic Buddha was also proficient in the yin and yang dust formation to divide the two worlds, while the boy from Tianqian Mountain, Shunlei, could traverse the two worlds. The 7 sons of Mount Lishan were slightly weaker. Chun Ang's sword light appeared, causing gods and ghosts to avoid him. However, his sword will seem to be there and not there. It was awe-inspiring like the movement of the heavenly Tao, merciless and selfless. It seemed to have grasped the creation of a universe, moving freely between the two worlds. In an instant, he moved 71 times and cut down the 13 Lianhua flowers protecting River Styx. Every time the 12 sword lights weakened the red lotus, the River of Nine Bends Yellow River Formation would invade and whittle away at the foundation of the River of Blood Formation. River Styx did not panic and continued to deal with the attacks calmly. His 2 swords spun and the blood lotuses bloomed under his feet, forming a world of their own. His movements were illusory and dreamy, leaving no traces. His sword technique seemed to have been tempered through countless killings. It seemed to rise from the sea of blood, River Styx. Just by looking at the sword light, there was a merciless smell of blood. Even if ascetic Buddha and the others scratched their heads, they would never have guessed that they were the same person just by looking at their sword techniques. However, Chun Ong and River Styx came from the same source. Even though their paths of swordsmanship were different, they had both reached the pinnacle, and it was difficult to tell who was better. However, Chun Ang's 12-mooned waterscape swords had 12 flying swords that formed their own formation. Compared to River Styx's dual swords, he had a slight advantage. Even though it was only a minor advantage, at their level of swordsmanship, they could use this advantage to gain the upper hand. Both parties' swordsmanship had been thoroughly tempered. It was as natural as an antelope hanging its horns. There were no flaws at all. It was impossible for ordinary cultivators to fight with swords by relying on ingenious ideas or to suddenly cast spells and sneak attacks. They could only rely on the foundation of their swordsmanship. The onlookers broke out in cold sweat and trembled in fear. Ascetic Duda knew that if they were only competing in swordsmanship, he would lose in at most 40 rounds. The 7 friends of Mount Lishan broke out in cold sweat. If they were to fight against River Styx, UN2, or Avicii, they would probably die in 7 rounds. There was no need to mention the other rogue immortals from overseas. They were all trash who could not even last 1 round. At this moment, even the most conservative and xenophobic rogue immortals from overseas were secretly praying for Chunong to win. If no one stopped River Styx, the rogue immortals from the 4 seas would not be able to do anything to River Styx. If he was allowed to roam the overseas, he would probably kill all the cultivators from the 4 seas. Just as River Styx was at a disadvantage due to his dual swords, 6 Lianhua flowers were slashed by Chunong, and he even found an opening to enter the celestial demon diagram and kill 2 celestials and demons on it. Seeing that the situation was turning for the better, River Styx suddenly smiled. Fellow cultivator, you are relying on the advantage of your weapons. Don't blame River Styx for borrowing the formation. As soon as he said this, he turned his body and transformed into a primordial spirit of the Blood River. It merged with the 2 sword gleams and displayed the most advanced primordial spirit sword kinesis technique. Previously, when he controlled UN2 and Avicii, he only relied on the spirituality of the 2 swords to move according to his will. However, he was controlling them from a distance after all. Even though the spirituality of the man and the swords were one and his senses were fast, his reactions were slow and stiff. Now that his primordial spirit was attached to the sword gleams were like his limbs and body. When he controlled them again, his reactions were extremely fast, and he could also make some subtle changes. However, the disadvantage was that with the primordial spirit attached to the swords, there were many dangers in sword fights. Life and death were often decided in an instant. If one was not careful, there would be no room for recovery. Soon, River Styx regained the upper hand and suppressed Chun-Ang's sword gleams to within 100 miles. The primordial spirit sword kinesis technique moved around the Blood River matrix, making it even more unpredictable. He could teleport with just a thought. That way, he could use the matrix to control the distance and teleport at will to gain an advantage. Ascetic Duda observed for a while and sighed. River Styx's swordsmanship, primordial spirit, and matrix are one and the same. He is like a heavenly demon. Even though Chun Dao's techniques are not any weaker than River Styx's, one of them is defending while the other is attacking. They will have to go deep into the 2 great matrices that River Styx has set up to fight him. If they stay in the big matrices and slowly suppress him, it will be fine. Unfortunately, they don't have enough time. If Chun Dao's body is destroyed, the overseas Taoism will be weakened and the great tribulation of deities will be even more tragic. Yuan Turtle Island, Tian Qian Mountain, even Xiankong Island's ancestor Xiankong, and Copper Coconut Island's esteemed Tianqi will all be in danger. Fellow Taoist Chun is the only one who controls the fate of the sea. If he's here, he'll be able to stabilize the 4 seas. If he's defeated, even the 6 freaks of the universe and the other secluded cultivators won't be able to resist Mingi, unless Mount Amei takes action. However, Mount Amei's foundation is in the center of Sichuan. We can't take care of the front and the back. It will be very difficult to suppress this demon. At this point, even a master like Ascetic Duda could not help but sigh. During the Great Tribulation, the path of Tao would be very difficult. When River Styx killed Xinyuan Old Monster, Ascetic Duda still had some confidence. He was not afraid of River Styx. Now that he saw how powerful the formation was, he knew that this demon was only a little bit away from being invincible. He did not dare to boast that he could subdue this demon. Just as ascetic Duda was about to persuade the others to help Chun-Ong subdue River Styx, he suddenly received a telepathic message. It was Chun-Ong warning them, retreat 100 miles away. This demon is very fierce. If we don't take the risk of harming 1,000 miles, it will be difficult to subdue him. Ascetic Duda was a person who knew the severity of the situation. If River Styx was allowed to act recklessly, the harm would be greater than harming 1,000 miles. Knowing that Chun-Ong was going to use a ruthless method, they released their treasures to protect the sea. The Yellow River of Nine Bends formation also changed automatically, trapping the two people who were fighting inside. A spot of golden light shone above the clouds. Chun-Ong suddenly became one with his sword and sliced through the clouds. A strange warship bathed in the sun's true fire appeared majestically. Its keel was thousands of miles long, and its entire body was covered in dragon scales. Both sides of its ribs were extremely bright, as if it was formed by endless golden sun's true fire. It slowly spread out as if it had substance. With a gentle wave, it split open the eye of the sea below, revealing the rocky stratum that was thousands of miles deep. As Chun-Ong entered the golden warship, the giant warship flapped its wings and turned into a magnificent golden light. It plunged into the clouds. The two wings of the sun god's fire intertwined and turned into a circle of golden light that was tens of thousands of miles long. It was formed by endless sun's true fire, and it cut the Blood River in half. Even someone like River Styx had to avoid the sharp edge and move away from the two giant golden wings. Chapter 518. This turn of events really shocked the onlookers. Everyone was awestruck by the power of this giant warship. In Mount Shu, the magical treasures and flying swords were small and exquisite. The usage of natural treasures was limited. Who would dare to use so many essences of 5 metals and 10,000-year-old cold iron to create such a magnificent treasure? This kind of magical treasure of war should not exist in a swordsman world. Only in a civilized world where everyone cultivated and everyone was like a dragon would there be such a killing and formation-breaking treasure. Only an anomaly, such as Chun-Ong, who had seen too many planet-destroying warships the size of planets in the technological universe and technological weapons that could vaporize stars, would have the inspiration to craft such a piece of magical equipment. Not to mention ascetic Duda and the other independent immortals from overseas who were watching the battle, were all terrified. Their natural instincts, which were suppressed by their primordial spirits, showed their ugly expressions. For the first time, they felt that as independent immortals who sought Tao outside of the world, they were as insignificant as ants. The only thing that could vaguely describe them was the power of heaven. Such a method was really like the power of heaven. Ascetic Duda was still fine. After all, he was not as petty as these independent immortals. Ancestor Xiankong caused an earthquake in the North Pole. Mount Amei opened a mansion. Chun-Ong opened a volcanic sea eye on Moon Island. And later on, the pond of elusive ripples and the realm of light of extraterrestrial Divine Mountain. The cultivators in this world did not lack powerful methods to create stars and move mountains and fill seas. Therefore, they only felt that Chun-Ang's magical treasure was powerful and could restrain formations. He was not as weak as those unknowledgeable cultivators. Under the attack of this formation-breaking treasure, the foundation of River Styx's 2 formations was shaken. Under the erosion of the Yellow River formation of 9 Bends, the formation became weaker and weaker. It could only take root on 2 barren reefs and change its formation into a void. It shed the original form of a killing formation and revealed the illusory formation to barely hold on. River Styx was restrained by Chun-Ong and could not use any method. It could only watch the giant warship show its power. Divine light gathered on the 2 divine fire wings of the sun and tightened on the side of the golden ship, as if it was plated with a layer of golden light. The divine thunderball of yin and yang creation at the core of the golden ship was repeatedly activated by Chun-Ang's supernatural power. Suddenly, a great force was generated, absorbing endless divine thunder from the void. The thunder was converted into magnetic force by the divine thunderball of yin and yang creation, magnetic divine light, shining under the eye of the sea. The eye of the sea was the weakest part of the earth's crust. Under the illumination of the divine light of magnetic divine light, the underground magnetic force was absorbed. The golden ship exerted its power and shook, opening a hole in the earth's crust and sucking out the Xian Yin Taiyang fire. The planet of Shushan was a mass of Taiyang fire and Xian Yin Taiyang fire. Because of the attraction of yin and yang, the planet rotated rapidly all day long. It also produced a layer of magnetic genuine qi and 13 layers of the ancient Earth's crust to keep the Earth safe. According to the model constructed by Chunong, the planet in the land of Shushan was a strange celestial body that looked like a Dyson sphere. The center was the Taiyang fire and Xianyin fire that was like a star. The outer layer was suspended by the magnetic genuine qi and wrapped around the Taiyang fire to form mountains and rivers. Therefore, most of the calamities in this world were the eruptions of underground volcanoes. This was because the mortals in the land were standing on a star that was much smaller than the sun. If the Taiyang fire was triggered, it would really have the power to destroy the world. The most powerful method of the Golden Ship of Fate was to use the divine light of magnetic divine light to open up a passage to the Xianyin poison fire and suck out the Taiyang fire. Only Chenong dared to use such a method. He had extinguished the Taiyang fire and suppressed the underground volcanoes several times. His methods were skillful and superb, which was why he had the courage to trigger the Taiyang fire to destroy the world. Once the Xianyin poison fire appeared in the eye of the sea, it immediately broke through the foundation of the Blood River Formation. Even with the help of the Empty Demon Formation, it was difficult for the Blood River Formation to defend against this heavenly power. The poisonous fire and raging flames rushed into the sky, melting rocks and flowing gold. The vast ocean turned into boiling water. Then, the chi of the previous heavens was triggered, and the true fire of the sun descended to help. The sea and sky were filled with raging flames. If not for the Yellow River Formation of 9 bends to guide and seal off the area, all living things within a radius of 1,000 miles would not be spared. The whole world would be affected, and earthquakes would be a disaster everywhere. Hot air rose and spread throughout the universe. The boiling water overflowed, and many places connected to the sea were affected. The extreme heat spread and plague spread. Grass and trees withered, and birds and beasts disappeared. It was unknown how many living things would be buried in it. Even so, other than a cold spring in the eye of the sea, the entire Earth's crust sea was on the verge of collapse. River Styx kept the 2 big formation maps and wrapped them around himself. Looking at the endless earth fire boiling under his feet, he sighed helplessly. "Friend, you are very capable and decisive. Good magic treasures, good supernatural powers. I, River Styx, am really impressed. Since you are able to use such a method, I'm sure you can eliminate this disaster and rebuild the eye of the sea. Not only will you not be affected by this endless karma, but you can also turn disaster into good fortune. It's not that my mana and cultivation are not as good as yours. It's just that I'm not as good as the power of heaven and earth. Your path of creation is really admirable. Respect. Respect." After saying that, he activated the Blood River Formation map with all his might. From the cold spring in the eye of the sea, he took out a corporeal body with horns and turned into a ray of blood light. He left a message. "Today we lost our corporeal bodies and fought for a while. I've lost. In the future, with our corporeal bodies, we will definitely fight with you for a while." Ascetic Duda knew that it was impossible to stop River Styx. Moreover, now that he had won a small victory, the most important thing now was to eliminate the earth fire and turn disaster into good fortune. Otherwise, if the earth fire were to spread, it would probably create endless karma. Therefore, it was reasonable that Chunong did not chase after it. Chunong leaped onto the golden ship and stayed on top of the sea of fire. Looking into the distance, he saw a scene of devastation. He could not help but sigh. Such a Pyrrhic victory. I wonder if it's a blessing or a disaster. Ascetic Duda comforted him. Friend, you control the earth fire and did not release it. As long as you try your best to repair it, there will be no future trouble. Chenong naturally knew about this. Since he dared to trigger the earth fire, not only could he win over Mount Amay's favor, he could also use it to rebuild the eye of the sea and truly open the four seas. However, this method could not be discussed with ascetic Duda. As soon as he said this, he controlled the golden ship and cut off the passage of the earth fire. He triggered the underground primordial magnetism to repair the stratum. He refined the 2 stratum closest to the surface of the 13 stratum into a white jade that could soothe water and fire. After being refined by the Xianin poisonous fire, the solar real fire, the Chani real water, the Xianming real water, and the other 5 types of real water, it almost became a kind of precious jade that was laid under the eye of the sea. Then he melted the cold spring and obtained a pure and cold spiritual spring that connected the entire eye of the sea and the underwater palace. The 9 bends yellow river formation drew in endless seawater to eliminate the boiling Tai fire. Then the golden ship of fate collected the remaining rootless fire and drew in the chi of 9 heavens to refine the eye of the sea. Then, when the eye of the sea was hit by the earth fire and almost collapsed, it broke the 9 bends yellow river formation and refined it into the eye of the sea. The cold spring in the eye of the sea and the remaining underground fire veins complemented each other, turning the eye of the sea that had expanded several times into a blessed land for living beings. Finally, Chunong placed the 9-layer pearl palace jade palace in his sleeve into the beautiful jade stratum. He guided the cold spring fire veins to refine it and guided the earth veins and water veins. Then, he used the 9 bends yellow river formation to gather the spiritual chi of the 4 seas to nourish countless celestial trees, flowers, and grasses, as well as countless precious elixirs. In this way, it took a month of effort to finish planting the countless rare jade herbs that Chunong had collected overseas. At this time, the 9-layer immortal abode was deep in the crust of the eye of the sea, nourished by the cold spring fire veins. Chunong transplanted more than 10 beautiful springs and countless rare elixirs. Then there were the treasures brought to the ground by the rolling Tai fire nearby, the mineral veins at the bottom of the sea, and the 9 bends yellow river formation swallowed endless seawater, creating countless living beings in the South Sea. It had become an immortal abode that was better than the Purple Cloud Palace and the Moon Island. Chapter 519. River Styx turned into a bloody rainbow and flew across tens of thousands of nautical miles in an instant. When he was sure that no one could follow him, he slowed down and released the Blood River formation into a bloody cloud. He rode the bloody cloud and flew away. Only then did he have time to take out Xianyuan the great primordial spirit blood bead and slowly permeated it with the supernatural power of the Blood River. He flipped through the old monster's memories. Other than the Book of Diabolism, which he kept as the foundation of his own accumulation, he only skimmed through the other things of his adulthood. He focused on the memories of the last 100 years, especially the memory of obtaining the Blood God Sutra. From Xianyuan the Great's memory, Chunong learned that the origin of the Blood God Sutra was not simple. When Xianyuan the Great went to West Kunlun to visit a friend, he befriended a mysterious person and was taught a part of the Blood God Sutra. He snuck into the person's cave and stole the rest. Even in Xianyuan Fuwang's memory, this fellow of the demonic sect was quite mysterious. Apart from knowing his name and appearance, he didn't even know where he came from. Chunong extracted that person's information from his memory and calculated with his primordial spirit. As expected, it was also chaotic. This seemingly worthless information actually revealed a lot. For existences like the main gods, their methods were nothing more than people succeeding. Those who had left the samsara realm would not be able to adapt to changes. Their essence was as profound and grand as the laws of the world. Because of this, they lacked the intelligence of the essence of living beings. Like the heavenly Tao above and artificial intelligence below, they were all existences that relied on the internal Luo Ji rules to operate. Therefore, the Lord needed the samsara travelers and the help of the samsara travelers to be considered alive. Otherwise, they would be like dead things and could not survive and grow. The Lord was like heaven and earth. They still needed the samsara travelers to add the spirituality of humans to be considered alive. At present, the Lord's invasion of the Shushan world was still shallow. They could barely hide the mysteries of heaven. The samsara travelers also had many scruples in their actions. They did not dare to trigger the reaction of the net of karma and attract the attention of the spiritual immortal realm. Chun-Ong could imagine how the Lord would restrict the samsara travelers who entered this world. It was nothing more than punishment and threats of obliteration. River Styx dispersed the trigram in her primordial spirit and looked toward the Middle Earth in the north. She smiled and said, "Is in West Kunlun? It's a gathering place for people from the Devil's Path and evil sects. It's close to Mount Amay, but we can avoid direct contact. It's a good place." Currently, Chun-Ang's main body still needed to guard the eye of the sea and calm the fate of the four seas. He could not be moved easily, and it was more convenient for River Styx to do things. Thus, he was sent to the great Ming dynasty of the Central Plains to search for the traces left behind by the chief deity. He had already calculated that the chief deity did not intend to wait until the start of the plot, when the good and the evil fought at Siyun Temple to deepen their encroachment. Instead, he wanted to directly interfere with the changes in the dragon veins of the great Ming dynasty. He wanted to strengthen his influence on this world from the perspective of humanity. Some people said that the dragon aura would conceal the karma, making it even more difficult to detect it. The karma of the dragon court in the human world was the most complicated, and there was also the dragon aura to suppress the karma. It was a good opportunity for the Lord. It certainly wanted to support the Manchurian Qing, to replace the Great Ming, to seize the opportunity to mix with the people of humanity, to erode this world. How dare the Tarzan call himself the mandate of heaven when he represents the Han dynasty? It is not easy for the righteous immortal Chan to make a move, but I, River Styx, have no scruples. There will always be arrogant people who presume that the result will be predetermined. I will kill him for 100,000 wild boar skins. I want to see what the chief deity will do to save the great Ming. River Styx sneered. The Tarzan's usurpation of the Han dynasty was an extremely coincidental matter. If Chun-Ong had not interfered, the chief deity might have taken advantage of the situation and made it happen. However, if the Tarzans had the mandate of heaven and were supported by all sides, it would be a joke. Not to mention that Mount Amay had never accepted barbarians like the drunken Taoist. They did not even accept traitors who defected to the Manchurian Qing. Each of them claimed to have lost their country. In the future, their third-generation disciples, the five dwarves of Eastern Sichuan, managed the human world's industry. It was also the base camp of the anti-Qing forces. There were countless disciples who killed officials and rebelled. If it was not for the law of karma, where cultivators killed mortals, and the sword immortals of Mount Amay pursued immortality more than anything else, the Manchurian Qing would have been overturned a long time ago. In the end, the Manchurian Qing dynasty suppressed Taoism and Buddhism and supported the Tibetan Lamas. The so-called mandate of heaven was just a joke. The orthodox Buddhism of the Han dynasty, such as Zunsheng and Bai Mei, did not mix with the Manchurian Qing. Instead, it was the tantric sect of heresy and the evil Buddhas who wanted to borrow the power of orthodoxy to spread their faith to the Han dynasty of the Central Plains. That was why the living Buddhas came down to the highlands to help the Manchurian Qing. They did it for their own benefit. Mount Amay, on the other hand, had always been the mainstay of eradicating these heresy and evil Buddhas. They had killed countless foreign monks and devils. Therefore, those who needed the River Styx to kill were probably the heresy and evil Buddhas who came down from West Kunlun and the Great Snow Mountain of the Highlands. The orthodox Buddhism of Buddhism and the most difficult old bald donkeys were all from the Han Zen sect, the Pure Land sect, and the Vinaya sect. On the other hand, the heresy and tantric sect of heresy were all rooted in the base camp of the Devil Path in West Kunlun. It was likely that as soon as they removed their Devil Path instruments, blood, and souls, they would sit up and become living Buddhas. It was hard to say how many of those lamas were actually the puppets of the old devils living in seclusion in West Kunlun. Fortunately, Tubo was a country of serfs and slaves. The lamas and nobles would kill and plunder the slaves. They would skin their slaves and dig out their hearts at the slightest provocation. There were very few righteous mystic Dor who would come to uphold justice. It was truly the most suitable place for the devil path to grow. The old devil of Taichung Mountain, the deities and devils of Red Body sect, and a group of devil disciples used their blood and souls to refine their treasures. They were also tortured to the point of extreme resentment. The few outer Tao protectors of the Bon sect and Tantric sect, and the likes of Mahakala, are also very familiar to me. They seem to be 90% similar to the 7 emotions and 6 desires deities and devils in the celestial demon diagram. It's hard to say whether it was the Buddha who subdued the heresy or the heresy who went public through a back door. Old Man Sheepy seemed to have switched to Buddhism in the end. Even now, his attainments in Buddhism are not shallow. I think in his previous life, he seemed to have reincarnated as a famous person. Lianhua was born. If he was really Old Man Sheepy's previous life, then the legend of the ancestor of Tantric sect, Lianhua, being born to subdue the Bon sect's heretics is really interesting. During the Dharma ending period, they're my descendants. They wore your kasaya and spoiled your Dharma. In the name of monks, they walked the devil path. This seems to be the source of Old Man Sheepy's orthodoxy, the Azura Devil King Boishuan's great wish. If it's really as I think, in the end, Old Man Sheepy was sent to Buddhism. Maybe it was the great wish of the Azura Devil Path. Riverstyx laughed coldly. He had secretly calculated and confirmed many of his guesses. However, the old devils of West Kunlun had extraordinary means. After so many years of operation, they had covered up their tracks so well that not even a drop of water could leak out. He really could not pry into the arrangements of those people without much effort. However, no matter what, if it was said that the outer Tao Buddhism born from West Kunlun Devil Daozu's court was so pure and flawless, Chenon would not believe even a single one of his toes. It was just that how many of them were devils who went public through a back door, or whether the entire sect was just the other side of the devil path was another matter. Chapter 520. After entering the Middle Earth, Riverstyx did not go straight to West Kunlun, nor did he stop when he passed by Chixiao Mountain in Jinling. The former was because the opportunity had not arrived, and it was not good to alert the enemy. The latter was because he was now using the identity of Riverstyx, and it was not good to meet old friends. It was better to go to Chixiao Officer when the deity came. At this time, fate was flourishing in Liaodong. According to Chun Ang's calculations, his 3 disciples were all at the front line of Guaning to take charge of the resistance. The second disciple, Yongda, was entangled with tribulations. His fate had reached its lowest point, and he had encountered a death tribulation. Chunong could be considered a tribulation in his life. Before he could pass this tribulation, he was betrayed by the traitors and died tragically. That was why there were only 2 of the 3 elites of Qilu and Qilu left. Although the tribulation had changed due to Chun Ang's intervention and the slim chance of survival had increased, it was still extremely dangerous. According to Chun Ang's calculations, it was probably related to the deaths of Longfei and Mao Tai. With their current mana, even the unorthodox path could not do anything to them. However, they had not received the teachings of Chenong. It was still dangerous to encounter the unorthodox demons of the rogue immortal level. He went straight to Liaodong. Along the way, he met fellow Taoists who were passing by. He lifted the blood cloud and flew past. He did not look like a good person no matter how one looked at him. Along the way, he startled many cultivators. Fortunately, his flying light was so fast that others could only see a clue before he passed by. Even if they chased after him, they would not be able to catch up to him in time. Beijing of the Great Ming Dynasty used to be the capital of the previous dynasty. The founding emperor of the current dynasty despised it for being remote and desolate. Originally, the capital was located in Jinling. This was the reason why the ancient capital of Jinling was still called Yingtian City. However, later on, among the sons of the founding emperor of the Great Ming Dynasty, there was an extremely outstanding character who did not inherit the throne. Later on, there was internal strife, and his nephew, the emperor, was ousted from the throne and was called Emperor Chengzu. When Emperor Chengzu looked at Jinling again, he felt that it was too prosperous. As the saying goes, a gentle village is the grave of a hero. It was not good for the country, so he moved the capital here. My great Ming civil officials love money, and military officials fear death. It's only been a mere 200 years. Even the ferocious spirit of the people in the capital of the northern borderline can't stop them from abandoning Ming. That Emperor Chengzu really had foresight. If they were still in that beautiful land of Jinling, I'm afraid they would have crippled those bureaucrats 100 years ago. Mingyi pressed the conveyance light to the left of Beijing. He was still dressed as a young man in black clothes. He sighed with emotion as he looked at the majestic country. The capital city is at the northern border, using the power of the entire country to suppress a small Nuzan clan, allowing them to grow. The imperial court's cultural relics, the entire nation's bureaucrats, even the so-called scholars and scholars, the Donglin eunuchs clique, they are all worms that eat away at the country. Since the pre-Qin dynasty, scholars have been the backbone of the Han people. They write with passion and vigor. Only during the Ming and Song dynasties, the scholars' backbone has been castrated. Their blood and qi have lost their vigor. They actually play with their feet and have deformed aesthetics as pride. It's really Confucianism that harmed people. They're a group of hopeless worms. Although their flesh and blood are still there, their spirit is dead. These Confucians are like the ghosts of the true Confucians, rotten and rotten things. He did not use his mana to cover his words. He stood near the city gate. So many people heard him. A group of ordinary people at the city gate had seen all kinds of people, so they did not want to meddle in other people's business. Only a few scholars were angry. They poked their heads out from both sides to see who dared to speak like this. Some people wanted to stand out and scold him, but they were secretly stopped by their friends beside them. Although in this world supernatural power had not been revealed, but the cultivators often walked in the human world, there were also many legends about the swordsman, the Wolin swordsman, and the like. Chun Ang's youthful Taoist attire was exactly two of the most difficult characters to deal with in the Jianghu: beggar, Taoist, monk, old woman, and child. The guards at the city gate pretended not to hear him. Among these Confucians, there were many smart people. They did not want to cause trouble. Only one merchant from Jin heard this. His eyes lit up. He was sure that the person who dared to say such words must have some skills. He looked at River Styx's attire, which was simple and unadorned. He had traveled all over the world and even traveled overseas to do business. Therefore, he had some discerning eyes. He recognized that this was made from the rare shark caltrip. He was even more certain that River Styx was not an ordinary person. Therefore, he rushed over and said loudly, "Well said, Taoist. You hit the problem of the Ming dynasty, and your knowledge is extraordinary. I am Qiao Si, a merchant from Zhangjiago. I admire Taoist's extraordinary bones. You are a noble and elegant person. I have come to invite you. I wonder if Taoist would honor me with your presence." If Chenong was here, he would have said a few words to him out of respect. However, Mingyi knew that this person had a lot of distracting thoughts and was full of demonic thoughts. If not for the many skyscraping demons on the picture of gods and demons who sensed the sentient beings of the great Ming dynasty and learned some interesting things from this person's consciousness when they were sharpening themselves among the distracting thoughts of the mortal world, the few feet around him would be a natural moat. Even if he spent hundreds of years, he would not be able to take one step closer to Mingyi. Mingyi glanced coldly at Qiao Si and left, not bothering to pay any attention to him. Qiao Si was speechless. He thought that even if the Taoist boy did not like him, he should not have been so rude. However, he did not expect that Chenong would not give him any face. The servants around him were furious. The Qiao family was a local tyrant in Zhangjiago. Even in the capital city, they did not think that anyone would not give them face. If not for the fact that the Chow family had offended a powerful enemy, they would have taught the young man a lesson. Xiao Si was initially furious. However, he was an expert in business. After he calmed down, he felt that Chunong was not an ordinary person. If he did not have great abilities, how could he have such a big temper? Those who were successful in business in the Ming dynasty would always look down on their juniors. Instead, they felt that this was just a test and quickly followed him. Chunong took a step forward. It looked slow, but his servants could only catch up with his shadow. Before Chunong entered the city, he walked along the trade route. The road was rugged and remote. Although Xiao Si had ventured overseas when he was young, he had lived in wealth for a long time. Although his body was weak, his foundation was still there. Although he had lost half his life, he did not fall behind. He knew that his family was in trouble, and this young man was a life-saving straw. Hence, he gritted his teeth and used all his strength. Even though Chunong was nowhere to be seen, he still managed to survive. It was only when his legs were trembling that he saw a dilapidated temple in the distance. He was overjoyed and used his last bit of determination to follow. When he entered the temple, he saw that Chunong had already cleaned up the altar and was meditating on it. Xiao Si did not dare to disturb him. Moreover, he was certain that Chunong was the person he was looking for. He immediately led his servants to kneel below the altar. He was very strict with his family. The group of people knelt from afternoon to dusk, and then to night. 6 to 8 hours had passed, and there was not a single sound. Even though the small temple was disturbed by insects and the sky was dark, they did not move. It was a sign of great perseverance. Chunong's primordial spirit returned from Ningyuan. When he saw them still kneeling, he could not help but sigh. Although these merchants brought disaster to the country and people and were evil, they had great perseverance and willpower. They might be lacking in moral integrity, but they were not lacking in moral integrity. He pointed at his head, and a silver light was released, illuminating the small temple. He said to Xiao Si, "Speak. What do you want from me?" Xiao Si kowtowed to the ground, ignoring his sore and swollen legs and blocked blood vessels. He said urgently, "Immortal, please save my family. Our Qiao family is a wealthy family in Jin. We have done many good deeds, and the imperial court has rewarded us. However, because of our family business, we have offended a heretical demon. Seeing that our family is about to be harmed by him, we beg for your help." As he spoke of his sorrow, tears flowed down his face, and he looked pitiful. Chunong was now in the form of river Styx, so he was the most rebellious. He sneered, "What does your family's good background have to do with me? Why should I save you?" From his tone, it was clear that he was an eccentric demon. However, when Xiao Si heard this, he felt at ease. He felt that this was better. If he met a righteous immortal, it would be difficult to deceive him. One must know that he would not be able to gain any advantage. The Qiao family was not a benevolent family. Instead, they had done many evil deeds. If they met a righteous cultivator, it was hard to say who would be the one to punish. He immediately made a promise. If Taoist priest can save us once, the Qiao family has a lot of wealth. Even if I have to sacrifice my family, I'm willing. As long as my family is safe, it's fine. Xiao Si saw that Chunong's expression had softened. He had not figured out the true nature of this immortal, so he did not explain how they became enemies. He only said that the enemy was a martial arts tycoon in the Northwest. His surname was Wang. He was originally a playboy who was neither good at literature nor martial arts. 2 years ago, when he went to the South with his uncle, he learned a set of demonic Taoist techniques and practiced martial arts. Chapter 521. Chunong listened to Xiao Si's description of his enemy, but he did not mention many details such as how he became enemies, how he found a backer, and the enemy's abilities. He only cared about complaining and begging and swearing to offer his wealth. Chunong sneered disdainfully in his heart. His celestial demon diagram could sense the mysteries of people's hearts in the boundless universe, so he was probably more familiar with the details than Xiao Si himself. Wasn't the Qiao family's greatest enemy the person who was tricked by Chunong to realize his mistakes and was taught by his grandfather? He suddenly realized that the first half of his life was of no benefit to the country or the people, so he repented and turned over a new leaf. He sacrificed his life for the country and swore to save the situation and pacify the Tartars with his life. For this reason, he broke his home and fled to the northwest martial arts world. Wang Ming, swordsman Wang. He was originally a playboy in the secular world, but after being reformed by Chun Ong in Shisha Temple, he understood many principles of life. This was the merit of persuading people to do good under Chun Ang's identity as a righteous master, and it was an example of him doing good deeds. Although Wang Ming could not sleep at night because of this, broke up his home and ran away, was entangled by internal demons and harassed by external demons, and was like living in hot water every moment, he only got a moment of peace when he punished evil and cured people. But because of this, he also received many spells from the mystic door's devil path and became a glorious trial mouse, with the hope of living a long life. It was really Chun Ang's merit of teaching and persuading people to do good that made Wang Ming feel grateful at night and grind his teeth. This swordsman Wang served the people wholeheartedly and hated traitors and lackeys. His biggest task was to pacify the Tartars. Naturally, it was needless to say what kind of person Xiao Si was to become enemies with him. In the future, there were 8 royal merchants among the Jin merchants. It was Xiao Si and his group of ancestors who gave the credit to the younger generation. They regarded money as their life. Long before the Tartars entered the pass, they often traveled between the pass and the pass to provide material and fodder for their masters. They had made great contributions to the Manchurian Qing in slaughtering their compatriots and conquering the Central Plains. Indeed, the Tatars did not have a good cover to raise the flag. They were loyal and devoted dog slaves. Even to this day, there are still their descendants who are blowing the drum for them, saying that they are benevolent and righteous, pay attention to integrity, maintain the unity of the nation, and have made great contributions to our great Qing. He used the term Jin merchant spirit to praise him. If Chun Ong remembered correctly, the only reason why Xiao Si and the others stood out from their peers and became the wealthiest people in the Qing dynasty was because of their shamelessness and betrayal. Because of this, in the future, Lauda even bestowed upon a certain Jin merchant from Zhangjiago the property of Zhangjiago as the property of the world. He really used the blood of his compatriots to stain his head red. Chun Ong could not help but sigh. Cultivators have their own karma, but the karma of the secular world was fed to the dogs. Based on Chun Ang's character in the past, he should have killed such a person in front of him, then sent his flying sword to Zhangjiago to bury his entire family. However, now that Master River Styx has cultivated his character and character, do as the Romans do. After many years of cultivation, he has also accepted the moral principles of a cultivator and no longer killed mortals. It is not good for him to do such a thing anymore. Using a flying sword to kill mortals was a little too much. River Styx could only sigh and said indifferently, "I know what you're talking about. I don't care who you have offended. Mortals who are like ants, it has nothing to do with me how many of them die. Therefore, I will not meddle in your affairs." With such a high and mighty indifference, he really played the role of a cold and heartless demon who looked down on mortals perfectly. He then slapped the back of his head, and a cloud of black smoke rose. In the smoke, a ferocious-looking god statue made of white bones floated. This scene frightened Xiao Si so much that he trembled. He looked at Chun Ong with fear in his eyes. Xiao Si was a resolute and ruthless person. He could usually kill without batting an eyelid. However, he was a mortal after all. Things like ghosts and monsters from hell could still frighten him. How could he not be afraid of such a scene that only appeared in fairy tales? Chun Ong smiled coldly and landed the white-boned god statue in front of him. He shouted, "How would I know what your opponent is capable of? You want me to sacrifice my life for you with just a little bit of wealth? I will teach you a method. If it works, you will give me half of your family's wealth. If it doesn't work, your enemies will just kill your entire family, and it will have nothing to do with me." He spoke with sincerity, But if it was a normal person, they would have been angered by his style of only taking advantage of others and never taking advantage of others. However, Xiao Si was not a normal person. He was doing business at a low price. After he forced himself to calm down, he felt that trading with this Taoist was more reassuring than those who would bet their entire family's lives on it. He gritted his teeth and agreed. I know that a mortal master is a capable person. This little bit of wealth is nothing to you. So why would I dare to trouble you? Please tell me the method, immortal master. As he finished speaking, he knocked on the bluestone floor, making a knocking sound. Chenong looked at him seriously for a long time. He saw the blood flowing down his face and the ferocious expression on his face. He could tell that there was a ruthlessness in him. If he did not have this ruthlessness, how would he have dared to come out of seclusion and do business with the Tatars? This person was sinister and ruthless, but he was a decisive and resolute person. This was what the so-called evil people were like. This statue was entrusted by the mysterious devil from beyond the heavens, and it is quite efficacious. You were born in a rich family, so your ancestors must have been buried in a place with good feng shui, a place that can nourish vitality. Dig up the ancestral grave and use your own blood to bury the statue. Every day, sprinkle the blood of the 3 animals on the ground as a blood sacrifice. After 7 days, the feng shui of your ancestral grave will be destroyed, and it will become a place to raise corpses. After 7 days, you will bring out the statue and use the same animal blood as before to control the zombies raised in the grave. If your enemies come to harm you, you only need to point the eyes of the statue at them and recite an incantation to control the zombies to harm them. If they are no match for the zombies will suck their blood and kill them. Hearing this, Xiao Si's face was like a dye shop that had opened. There were green and purple patches on his face, and he looked terrifying. After thinking for a long time, he asked with a trembling voice, I am very uneasy about humiliating my ancestors like this. Immortal Master, do you have any other methods? Yes, Chen Ong said coldly. This is only a lowly spell. Other than being fast, it has no other advantages. I have countless spells that are more powerful than this, but you cannot afford to pay the price. How can a little money be exchanged for more? Of course, if you are willing to pay a higher price, I will not be stingy in giving you a more powerful spell. What price? Xiao Si swallowed his saliva and asked. Chapter 522. Xiao Si was terrified that Chenong could say such cruel words so easily. His mind went blank for a while, and only when Chun Ang's shadow appeared in front of him did he regain his senses. There was only one thought in his mind. This is a real devil. He wanted to run away, but he dismissed the thought. If I sell my family's wealth and hide my identity, I may not be found by the enemy. But what's the point of living like this? A real devil must have real skills. If I miss this opportunity, my family's wealth and even the lives of my entire family will be gone in a day. Haven't you heard that a real man can't be ruthless? Many thoughts flashed through Xiao Si's mind, but he finally made up his mind by relying on the ruthlessness in his bones. He gritted his teeth and kowtowed. Immortal Master, I am willing to offer half of my family's wealth to you. From now on, I will continue to offer offerings every year. The Qiao family is also a wealthy family in the land of Jin, with countless floating fortunes. Old ginseng from Changbai Mountain, pearls as big as the eyeballs of the South Sea, fine jade from the Northwest, rare birds and beasts, whatever you want I will definitely find for you. Even if it's a virgin, it's not a problem. Chen Ong only laughed coldly. I've already told you my conditions. Xiao Si kowtowed again. Immortal Master, I can't be such an unfilial person. I am willing to pay the price. Why do you have to force me? Chenong thought to himself, of course it's to make you suffer and seek your own death. But he could not say it out loud, so he only smiled and asked, the worldly wealth you mentioned is the most worthless thing to me. He then shook out his overseas goods from his sleeves. Gold, jades, pearls, and gemstones poured down, burying Xiao Si's body. Xiao Si looked at the cat's eye gemstones and countless gold pearls and jade beside him. His mind went blank, and he looked at Chenong again. His eyes were filled with fear and respect. Ong sneered and said, "If it wasn't for your perseverance and the fact that you knew how to grasp fate, I wouldn't have been able to find you. Even if you're as rich as a country, don't even think about meeting me. Your so-called wealth is just like dung to me, and you still want more?" Initially, Xiao Si did not believe these words. In Xiao Si's eyes, even immortals could be bribed with money. It was not that he was arrogant, but that was the nature of a businessman. It was just asking someone to get rid of an enemy. Why would they pay such a terrible price? However, Xiao Si couldn't differentiate among all the gold and jade. He finally understood how luxurious a cultivator's wealth was. He didn't dare to have any sense of superiority anymore. He lowered his head and begged, "Immortal elder, you need living souls and flesh when you cultivate and refine treasures. Even though Chao Clan is small, we can still find some people for you. I am willing to do anything for you. Please don't make things difficult for me this time." When Ong heard this, his heart became even colder. He looked at him like he was a dead man and asked, "With my transcendence energy, I want you to be my slave. Even if I want you to kill your entire family, it would be a piece of cake to extract your soul and refine it. Why would I want to make a deal with you?" This, Xiao Si was stunned. Ong laughed coldly. "You can force others to kidnap people, so why can't I force you to kidnap people from your family? Why would I still want to make a deal with you?" He looked at the fear, panic, ferocity, and anger that flashed across Xiao Si's face. Then, he said with interest, "In my eyes, you're no different from a beggar on the street or a slave that you can kill. Why can you use them to exchange for your family's safety? Maybe you think that your life is more valuable than theirs, but you are all the same in my eyes. I asked you to give up your life willingly, so you can't replace it with someone else's. This is the reason why I want to trade with you. We cultivators have always been fair. Even if you want to trade with someone else's 10,000 souls, it's still impossible. Do you understand?" When Xiao Si heard Ang's words, he knew that there was no other way, no matter how angry he was. He wanted to say something else to Ang, but he saw him sitting on the altar with his eyes closed. He did not want to speak anymore. Xiao Si picked up the white bone statue and wrapped it in his arms. He asked carefully, "Celestial Master, I will agree to your conditions. But please tell me, what is the taboo of this statue?" Ang's eyes were half open as he answered, "Other than controlling zombies to defeat enemies, this demonic ability is quite effective. If you use your family's blood to nourish it, it can protect your wealth and safety. Furthermore, the zombies refined from this statue must be your blood relatives. The closer you are to them, the better. Zombies will go crazy when they drink blood, and if they harm your enemies, anyone other than your blood relatives will be sucked dry of their blood. It's very dangerous." Xiao Si asked, "If the zombie is too weak and cannot defeat my enemy, what should I do? Even though the zombie is successful, it is still a ferocious creature. Even 100 burly men will not be enough to kill it. If it is a third-rate heretic, they will not be able to defeat it. But if it is someone more powerful, then you will have to accept your death. The power of zombies is divided into 5 levels. If the corpse in the tomb has decayed and turned into white bones, it will be the lowest level of skeletons. If the feng shui is good and it is a well-preserved corpse, then it will be refined into a walking corpse. It will be extremely strong and invulnerable, which is the 2nd level. If it is a fresh corpse that has been killed, it will grow white hair and become a white zombie. It is more powerful than a walking corpse and belongs to the 3rd level. Even people with some spells will not be able to escape from it. But you must remember that you must not let the zombie drink the blood of your blood relative. Otherwise, it will become more ferocious and shed its white hair and grow red hair. It will be 10 times more dangerous." Ang had explained everything to him, but he did not mention whether the red-haired zombie could be controlled by the white bone statue. Xiao Si wanted to ask about it, but when he saw the faint smile on Ang's face, he understood. The devil seemed to be reminding him, but he was actually encouraging him to make a move. He was probably after the zombie that Xiao Si had painstakingly refined. He wanted to use his family's blood to refine a zombie for him. Xiao Si thought to himself, "This devil is so vicious. He does not care about money and only wants to use my family's danger to threaten me to help him refine a powerful zombie. He thought that he had grasped Chenang's thoughts, so he did not ask any more questions. He made up his mind and thanked Chenang repeatedly before leaving. After he was a few miles away, Chenang sighed and said, I seem to have forgotten to tell him that the white bone statue can only restrain the white-haired zombie. If it drinks the blood of its blood relative, its madness will be uncontrollable and it will suck his entire family dry. Sigh, he was the one who did not want to ask me, so don't blame me. As for the white bone statue that Xiao Si took away, it was a powerful white bone demon that was invited from the heavenly demon diagram. If Chenang wanted to, he could kill 100 Wang Mings. But Chenang only wanted to kill Xiao Si, so he did not tell him so much. On the other side, Xiao Si gently examined the white bone statue that was even whiter than the best ivory. He thought to himself, my great master has not passed away yet, so how can this be a good place? Moreover, there is no trace of the ancestral grave. I have no choice but to inconvenience my father. The guard next to him suddenly interrupted his thoughts and asked, Master, the Taoist we met today is very evil. Should we tell Great Master? Chapter 5:23. Chenang watched Xiao Si leave, and an idea popped up in his mind. He thought, with the millions of Tartar people, I can kill them all in a day if I go all out. If I unfurl the celestial demon painting, it will be even faster. However, I, River Styx, am the leader of the demonic path and the leader of the demonic blood demon branch. It is unreasonable for me to attack them directly. Other than the third-rate heretics, few cultivators in this world will attack mortals directly. I will not break the rules. I should learn from Yuhua and think of a way to make them seek their own death. Chenang used the white bone statue to kill Xiao Si's family with the intention of setting up a trap. At the same time, he wanted to test his hand and demonstrate a method to kill people without leaving a trace. In the ruined temple, the black-robed young man's eyes revealed a murderous glint. After a few moments, he put away his plan and said, If there is no God, I can control Wang Ming and spend years to train a firearm army. It would be easy to wipe out the Jiannu. However, even a fool would know that someone is playing tricks in the dark. I need to start with the methods of this world. There are only 3 ways for cultivators to destroy the lifeline of the dragon Qi in the secular world. Supporting the dragon court, establishing a heretic sect, and intercepting fate. If I want to do something, it is not difficult to do all 3 at the same time. Other than Ming, who is an idiot, I can't rely on the others. The only thing is, I have to eliminate the cultivators behind the Tartars first before I can do anything. The heretics behind the Jurchen Jiannu can be divided into 2 groups. West Kunlun's demons and heretics are just clowns. I can wipe them out with a wave of my hand. However, this generation is cruel and merciless. I can still use them to destroy the people of the Manchurian Qing. I can put them aside for the time being. Next is the demon monks of the mystic sect. They form their own branch and are the Jiannu state religion. Now that the Tartars are in power, although the demon monks of the mystic sect are only a few on the surface, they have a deep foundation and can trigger the entire mystic sect of West Kunlun at any time. Fortunately, although Amei, Qingsheng, and other orthodox sects of the mystic door will not help me, they will not easily intervene in my conflict with the old devil of West Kunlun and the mystic sect. Mingi used his primordial spirit to operate the mysteries of heaven and silently calculated the overall situation of this killing tribulation. Suddenly, there was a vague tribulation aura above the surging evil Qi in the front line of Liaodong, which alarmed the mighty figures and masters everywhere. The 3 immortals on the Turtle Island in the East Sea bowed their heads. The white-browed ancestor in the Central Plains nodded his head. The old nun half of Wudong, the ancestor Xiankong of the North Sea, the green-robed ancestor of the southern border, Shanghaong of the Great Snow Mountain, the old devil of the West Kunlun, the blood god ancestor of the Stone God Palace, the old man Sheepy of the Azura Palace, the child Sand God, the old woman Jiopan of the Red Body Sect, and the other. Mighty figures of the righteous and the demonic paths. If an ordinary demon dared to harm the people, there would have been a warning from the heavenly secret. The masters of Amei and Qingsheng would have calculated the situation and would have taken the opportunity to plot against River Styx. Even a master of the celestial sect, an old man Sheepy, would not have dared to act rashly to avoid the wrath of heaven. Only River Styx's body was carefully calculated by Chunong. He should have the Tao fruit of the killing tribulation and open the tribulation according to the heavenly tribulation. It coincided with the tribulation of the 4-9 immortals and the Tartars invading the south. The tribulation of the celestial immortals was brought forward 20 years by the evil sign of the skyscraping devil's birth. He also mixed the immortal killing tribulation with the dragon court's luck. When the two merged, it was 10 times more tragic. River Styx was a peerless demon with the Tao fruit of the killing tribulation. After the tribulation of opening the South Sea, his cultivation had improved a lot. Now, he personally opened the tribulation in Liaodong and mixed with immortals. It was just the beginning, but his mana had increased along with the tribulation and advanced by leaps and bounds. Zhuan Zhenzi of the Eastern Sea sensed this change and could not help but frown. He sighed and said, "The birth of the skyscraping devil is indeed ominous." Although that River Styx was obstructed by Chun Daoyu in the South Sea and did not establish his roots in the Four Seas, he also sent many sects overseas to face the tribulation. He also got his body back, and his mana improved greatly. Now he has come to the Central Plains and wants to start an even bigger tribulation. Now, there are 3 major disasters in the human world. The first is the land of Shaanxi, Gansu, and Hunan. There are severe droughts and disasters. Roving bandits take the people and harm everywhere. It is the most suitable for the skyscraping devil's fate. If he enters the northwest, he will meet the drought demon. There will definitely be a drought for 3 years, and the area will be rotten and uncontrollable. The second is the military in Shandong is unstable. I'm afraid it will be disturbed by the northern calamity and sweep through the area. The last is the Tartars in the north. The dragon's chi has formed, and they invade the south every year. I already know that there's a demon from West Kunlun behind the scenes. He wants to take advantage of the invasion to cause a military disaster. He wants to slaughter the living to obtain blood and souls. He wants to practice countless evil magic in order to improve his mana. According to the calculations of the founder before he ascended, I'm afraid the fate of the great Ming dynasty will be cut off from the northwest and cut off from the northern invaders. Now that the skyscraping Liaodong is going to start a massacre in the northern frontier, it will be mixed with the human world's killing tribulation. Although it is not as violent as the one in the northwest, it is more dangerous. If the people in the world are entangled with the fate of the country, I don't know how many will die. Even the calculations of the ancestors will be affected. Ascetic Duda listened to his Shi Xiang and frowned. He could not help but feel uneasy. However, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He realized that although Zhuan Zhenzi's face looked sad, there was no deeper worry. He then used his primordial spirit to calculate and found out more inside information. In the end, he relaxed his brows and calmed down. He sighed and said, "Fortunately, the skyscraping disaster is not aimed at the Middle Earth. It is the devil path killing each other to fight for the orthodoxy. The disaster starts in the northern frontier, but it should be in the heart of the Tartars. I think it is aimed at the group of devil bastards from West Kunlun. As long as we guard carefully, we will definitely not let the skyscraping disaster spread to the Middle Earth. If we can let the skyscraping demon destroy the chi of the dragon, even the Middle Earth can avoid a military disaster and stop the evil from being rampant. Isn't that a good thing? Although the cause and effect of this matter is deep, it is still possible. Among the 4 mighty people, other than a few old bald donkeys who were stationed in the land, only the Amei immortals could calculate it clearly. When River Styx saw that Amei immortal's fate was tight and unwavering, he knew that his plan had succeeded. Amei immortal's reaction was not out of his expectations. He calculated the rest of the parties one by one. As expected, the righteous path did not move, while the devil path, the evil sects, and the unorthodox sects actively responded to the disaster. Only the fate of the Master God was not obvious. It was hidden like a poisonous snake. However, River Styx had Chunang's support behind him. If the Master God moved, the deity Chunang, who was guarding the South Sea, would not hesitate to attack. Once he made a move, it would be earth-shattering, and the Master God would not be able to escape. River Styx was busy hiding the mysteries of heaven or casting spells to disrupt the senses of many demons that he had calculated. He was playing games with many parties in the mysteries of heaven. Although he did not reveal himself, it was dangerous and consumed more energy than fighting on the opposite side. After several months, he finally managed to stabilize the overall situation. At this moment, Qiao Si had already returned to Zhangjiakou and made arrangements. Every day, he offered sacrifices to the white-boned deity statue. Gradually, the demonic thoughts of the heavenly demon stationed in the statue invaded his soul. Even if Chunang did not intervene, the demonic thoughts of the heavenly demon made him muddle-headed, and his evil thoughts grew stronger. The demonic thoughts did not erase his consciousness, but it encouraged the evil in his soul. Before Qiao Si returned home to worship the deity, he was able to harden his heart and bury his father alive, using the statue to cultivate a zombie. Although his father was greedy and committed countless sins, he loved his only legitimate son the most. Now that disaster was upon him, he buried his only son alive. Qiao Si's evil roots became even more vicious after being bewitched by the heavenly demon. In order to prevent the lackeys who followed him to see River Styx from discovering anything, he first sacrificed them to the white-boned deity statue to cultivate the heavenly demon. Even the evil power of the white-boned deity was strengthened. Although Father Qiao was old and weak, and his bones were not as sturdy as Qing Zhuang's, the resentment of being buried alive by his own son was very strong. With the blood sacrifices that Qiao Si offered to replenish the blood that his body lacked, he grew bones and scales. His body was covered in armor, and he was only one step away from becoming a mutated copper-armored demonic zombie. He was even more ferocious than River Styx had imagined. Although Qiao Si had not learned any unorthodox techniques, he could sense the power of the copper-armored demonic zombie under the blood sacrifices of the deity day and night. Due to the resentment of Father Qiao before his death, he was able to command the demonic zombie to kill people without the help of the white-boned deity statue. After receiving feedback from the white-boned deity statue, he also learned a few vicious techniques of the demonic path. His telegnosis ability was blinded by the demon, and he could no longer think about whether the statue would be under River Styx's control. He only cared about being controlled by the statue and using cruel methods to harm his subordinates, turning them into walking corpse soldiers. Chapter 5:24. At this time, Mingi finally had some free time. He flew to Zhangjiakou with his conveying light. The Qiao family was also one of the largest families in Zhangjiakou. Their courtyard and manor occupied hundreds of square kilometers of land. They built their manor like a fort, with walls that were about 10 feet high, arrow towers, high platforms, and narrow windows. The walls were all built with rocks and fine bricks. There were servants and guards in the manor. There were about 2,000 people in the family, and there were hundreds of strong warriors who could use weapons. The manor had wells, secret passages, granaries, and hiding places. They would not be afraid, even if tens of thousands of bandits surrounded them. He usually closed the manor doors and became his own world. Even the laws of the country were not as important as the family's laws. The surrounding peasant families who rented his fields usually lived on the ground. Only when the roving bandits captured them from the north would they live together in the manor. The rules of the Qiao family were strict. That was why when Qiao Si stirred up a storm of blood and turned the manor into hell, no one felt anything was wrong except for the Qiao family members outside and their business friends. There was still some distance between the Qiao clan's fort and the commercial port. Chunang descended from the conveyance light on the nearby commercial road. From afar, he could see the resentment on the top of the village soaring into the sky. A gust of demonic black gas rose to a height of more than 500 feet. The cultivators nearby could see it even from a few miles away. With such a thick demonic chi, Only 100 of the 2,000 people in the manor were left. Chao-Si had sacrificed so many people to the white bone statue. He had probably cultivated into a demon and turned the people in the manor into demonic corpses for him to control. These demonic corpses were controlled by the heavenly demon in the white bone statue. Chenong had not taken them back because he had other plans. River Styx had a tender face and looked like a 13 or 14-year-old youth. He was dressed in black and stood by the side of the road, looking in the direction of the Chiao family. He blinked. Two figures walked over from the official road that he was on. They seemed to be a grandfather and a grandson. A 16-year-old girl supported an old man as they walked over from the opposite side. They seemed to be surprised to see River Styx. River Styx's gaze swept past them. He was not bothered at all as he continued to sense the many demons and refined corpses in the fort. It was not the first or second day that something had happened to the Chiao family. It was normal for cultivators to come and investigate. Although the spiritual power of the grandfather and granddaughter was not shallow, it was not enough to be taken seriously by Chenong. The old man found a high ground not far from the River Styx. He formed a spell with his right hand and gathered qi in his eyes. He observed the situation of the Chiao family's fort from afar. The more he observed, the heavier his expression became. His left hand couldn't help but grab the girl next to him tightly. He took a deep breath and said, "Ja air, the demonic aura here is far beyond this old man's expectation. I look over there, the black aura above is about 100 feet tall, and it's as thick as a person's arms. Only the 1,000-year-old iron corpse that I met when I was young can compare to this kind of murderous aura and resentment. Moreover, the color is mixed but not messy, and the smell is fishy but not smelly. Even at noon, the murderous aura is only reduced but not exhausted. You can imagine how troublesome the hidden monster is." The girl heard this and became even more worried. She said uneasily, "Grandfather, if that's the case, you can invite others to eliminate this monster together. You must not take the risk alone." She observed the River Styx from afar for a moment. Although she could not see anything with her Dharma eyes, she still felt that the River Styx should be a fellow cultivator. She came up and said, "Fellow cultivator, I'm the daughter of the Luo family in Qinghai County. I'm passing by with my grandfather, Zhenren Luo. I also saw the murderous aura in the fort and felt a little uneasy. It's a pleasure to meet you. The monster hidden in the fort is not a trivial matter. I wonder if you are willing to take care of us." River Styx smiled and cupped his hands. Of course. He invited the two of them to sit down at a tea stall and explained, "I know some of this family's background. They're also a big family in Zhangjiakou. Their surname is Chiao, and they do business. Their family secretly had an affair with the northern frontier Jinu and earned a lot of family property. Recently, I heard that they provoked an enemy, so they closed their doors. I didn't expect such a disaster to happen." Zhenren Luo did not know about this. He pondered for a moment and asked doubtfully, "Then do you know the background of his enemy?" Chenong shook his head and said, "I don't know about this." As they were talking, a group of knights suddenly passed by on the road. The one in the lead was none other than Wang Ming, swordsman Wang Ong, whom Chenong had personally trained for several years. He was still as handsome as ever, but the frivolous air he had in the past had been washed away by time. Now, he had a calm air about him, and no one would associate him with the foppish playboy from Shisha Temple. Now he had cultivated by Yang Zhenren's orthodoxy to the realm of imperial sword 100 steps. The crane feather sword was wrapped around his waist, and he rode on a clawed yellow lightning. There were also 2 yellow worms hidden in his nostrils. He could summon them with a snort and use them to protect himself. Normal magic flying swords could not get close to him. If he summoned them to harm people, he would only need a breath's time before a stream of yellow qi would automatically fly out to kill the enemy. This kind of magic power was not inferior to normal unorthodox sections. In the past, Mao Tai practiced a flying sword for 20 years, but it was not much. Many of the unorthodox sects that Chun Ong killed overseas were defeated by him in a fight of magic power. This time, the great enemy that the Chiao family had attracted was precisely this person. Ever since Wang Ming had been enlightened by Chenong, he had deeply realized his own ignorance and shallowness. He had realized the truth of devoting his limited life to serving Emperor Tianqi limitlessly. For the sake of Chun Ang's little obsession, he had worked conscientiously and diligently on the righteous path of fighting against the Tatars and suppressing the bandits. The Qiao family was the leader of the large sects in the northwest of Jin. In recent years, both sides had fought several times, resulting in countless casualties. With a master like Wang Ming holding the line, the Jin merchants had suffered great losses several times. The rations that were being transported to the Jiannu camp were robbed several times by Wang Ming and his men. With such a deadly hatred, if it were not for the Qiao family's disciples practicing martial arts in the nearby sects, the Qiao family's connections with the nearby Jianghu, they would have been killed by Wang Ming and his men long ago. But even so, the pressure on the Qiao family increased. As Wang Ming's magic power continued to improve and his methods became more and more superb, the situation became more and more dangerous. Later, the Qiao family sent people overseas to recruit talented people and colluded with the demons of the Black Sand Island. However, the backer they relied on was mistakenly killed by Chun Ang in the Mermaid Sea Kingdom, which was a bad omen. The Qiao family received an ultimatum from Wang Ming, which was why they panicked and ran into the hands of River Styx, the devil. Chun Ang could not get away from all these, and it was also a sin. When he arrived at the Qiao family's fortress, Wang Ming had some magic power and could see that something was wrong. But after all, he was inexperienced and could not see that there were not many living auras in the Qiao family's fortress. He only thought that the Qiao family had hired people to deal with him. To some extent, his guess was not wrong. It was just that he did not expect that the Qiao family would be bewitched by some devil and turn their whole family into devil corpses. Chapter 5:25. As the devil Qi in the sky above the Qiao family's fortress grew stronger, more cultivators arrived. However, most of them had only learned one or two spells. Those unorthodox cultivators from overseas who were slaughtered by river Styx like pigs and dogs had to address them as seniors. When they saw the wanton devil Qi, how could they not know the gravity of the situation? Every single one of them flinched in fear. Mingi didn't care about their Dharma power. Among the group of people, except for the group of martial arts masters led by Wang Ming, only another group of people dressed in fresh clothes and riding furiously far behind could barely catch his eye. Priest Luo, who was with River Styx, seemed to have good eyesight. He immediately sized up Wang Ming and thought to himself, "This young man seems to have some mana, but I wonder why he's mingling with those mortals." As soon as Chun Ang heard this, he knew that this was a cultivator who secluded himself from the world to cultivate. This kind of cultivator's main purpose was to seclude themselves from the world. They would not easily appear in front of mortals. Even if they were to live in the world, they would not show their mana. In the secular world, there were many cultivators who had the same idea. Even the loose immortals only appeared as swordsmen. Bai Gai, one of the two elders of Mount Song, was a famous elder in the martial arts world. Therefore, River Styx did not find it strange, but he was more concerned about the Qiao family situation. At that moment, Qiao Xi's sacrificial refining of the devil Qi in the Qiao family's fortress had reached a critical juncture. He absorbed the devil Qi of the corpse soldiers under his command and mixed it into one, turning it into a mysterious corpse formation that was 1,000 feet long. With the copper-armored devil corpse made from his father's corpse as the leader, it formed a 7 noxious corpse formation and surrounded the Qiao family's fortress. He breathed in and out the mysterious corpse Qi and commanded the corpse soldiers to drag out the 49 women and children of the Qiao family. Qiao Xi's face was covered with blood-red scales. 2 fangs pierced through his upper lip. His eyes were completely black, and there were 3 bone spurs on his head. His 10 fingernails were about 7 inches long, and each of them was as hard as iron. It was a demonic creature that no longer had a human form and was reduced to a half-human, half-demon corpse. It opened its mouth full of fangs and grinned, looking at its family members with the eyes of a ferocious beast. Ignoring their pleas and cries, it was afraid that these 49 people would push down the white bone statue and wait until noon, when the blazing chi was at its strongest, then order the corpse soldiers to sacrifice them alive. Immediately, the bloody chi soared into the sky, smearing the white bone statue like a red jade. Chao Si opened his bloody mouth and spat out a mouthful of corpse chi, absorbing the chi of blood and the violent chi of the sun at noon to form a chi of evil. As the corpse chi was inhaled and exhaled, the movements inside were gradually made known to the people outside. Jinren Luo took advantage of the opening of the seven evils in corpse formation to attract the chi of the sun to peek at the situation inside. His expression changed greatly. Not good. That evildoer seems to be cultivating a powerful spell. He turned around and shouted, "Fellow Taoists, we can't hesitate any longer. While the devil hasn't mastered this kind of magic and the yang energy is at its peak at noon, let's attack together and save the people inside. Otherwise, this time has passed and the devil will be even more ferocious at night. If we wait until tomorrow, will the people inside still be alive?" Even though Jinren Luo's mana was weak, he had a righteous spirit. Chenong saw that the anxiety on his face did not seem to be fake. However, the others here might not be as kind as him. River Styx stood beside him. His position was self-evident. A young swordsman behind Wang Ming heard this and could not help but sneer. "The people inside are our great enemies. It's better if they all die. We originally came to kill him, but now you want us to save him? How can there be such a logic in this world?" Another person next to him took over and said with a smile, "Of course. We often subdue demons and devils in the Northwest, eradicate zombies and malicious spirits, and pacify the area. If Taoist Master wants to eradicate the demons in the Qiao family fort, we will not refuse. However, if you want to save the people of the Qiao family, I'm sorry, when the family is all dead, we will go and help Taoist Master." Hearing this, Jinren Luo's face turned ugly. He said in a low voice, "Looking at this demonic aura, I'm afraid the young men inside are already in trouble. Most of the people left are women and children, old and young, innocent. Even if it's a life and death feud, it's time for retribution." The young swordsman behind Wang Ming said quickly, "They are rich and powerful. Their clothes and food are made of the blood and tears of the people. Since they share the wealth, they have to bear the responsibility of the consequences together. How can they be innocent, since the gold, silver, and treasures that slave Jian plundered during the invasion have fallen into their hands and turned into wealth and splendor? They should also have a share of the blood and tears of retribution." Just as they were arguing, a cloud suddenly rose from the group of knights in embroidered clothes behind them. On it was a bed that was covered by a cloud-like curtain. It flew toward them from afar and stopped on top of Jinren Luo's head. A young man's voice came from inside. "Are you Jinren Luo of Qinghe? 3 years ago, I met Jinren Luo at my grandfather's birthday banquet. Today, I see you again. You are as elegant as before." Jinren Luo thought for a while and suddenly said, "So it's nephew Lu. I heard that you have made great progress in Tao under Jinren Luo of Great Men. You were once praised by Jinren Luo of Great Men as the most outstanding talent in Middle-earth in recent years. Why didn't you serve Jinren Luo in Manon? Why did you come to such a remote place?" The cloud bed slowly descended, and a young man in yellow clothes pulled the curtain aside and came out. He first glanced coldly at Wang Ming before answering Jinren Luo's question with a smile. Other than that, he did not look at anyone else. It was obvious that he was extremely arrogant. He said, "Someone asked me to be under Jinren Luo's tutelage. They said that in recent years, there's been a group of demons running amok in the Northwest. They use some spells to indiscriminately kill the good and run amok. Jinren Luo wanted to personally punish them, but I took into account that Jinren Luo is old and that there is no need for him to personally deal with this kind of unorthodox demons. Thus, I will do it on his behalf." Hearing his words, how could River Styx not know that he was talking about Wang Ming? River Styx raised his eyes slightly and saw through the young man's background. He did not even have magic power to control his sword. He was able to fly through the air by relying on the cloud bed under his feet. However, it was only a third-rate instrument refined from a cloud tree. Other than looking good, it did not have the slightest ability to defend against enemies. Don't be fooled by the way it flew over leisurely and leisurely. In reality, it was all for show. At its fastest, it could only fly at this speed. With Riverstyx's knowledge, he was certain that even if his grandfather, Jinren Luo, came in person, he would still be beheaded by Wang Ming in 2 moves, let alone Wang Ming, whom he had carefully trained. It was not because Jinren Luo did not live up to his reputation, but because this person was a flower that had grown up in a greenhouse in the south. He had probably only fought a few spells in his life. He had relied on performing spells for high officials and nobles to gain recognition. Against Wang Ming, who had been pushed into danger by Chun Ong several times and had fought his way out a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, he was naturally a piece of trash that was sent to his death. However, the young man felt good about himself and insisted on joining hands with Jinren Luo to break into the Qiao family fort. Fortunately, judging from Jinren Luo's subtle refusal, he should know what kind of person he was. Chapter 5:26. Chun Ang's celestial demon diagram did not come out, so Qiao Ci's self-consciousness controlled himself and the 7 evils in corpse formation. Chun did not care about him. As long as his corpse chi reached a certain level, he would be able to obtain the corresponding evil technique from the white bone statue. If the celestial demon was pleased with the blood sacrifice, he would be able to grant it extra. These techniques were techniques that the celestial demon had comprehended himself. Aside from being restrained by the fundamental technique of the celestial demon diagram, these techniques were considered superior in the demonic school. The initiation of the demonic school's techniques was smooth, and it was easy for one to advance by leaps and bounds. However, Qiao Ci was controlled by the demon, so he did not care about this. In addition, his self-consciousness had long been distorted by the celestial demon. In his frenzy, his mana increased. As noon approached, the corpse chi and devil chi in the Qiao's fort surged. Vaguely, a hideous demon statue with 4 heads and 8 faces condensed in the sky. If the servants who were killed by Qiao Ci were still here, they would definitely recognize this demon statue as the white bone statue that Riverstyx had given to Qiao Ci. The faces were almost the same, but the 4 faces were happy, angry, sad, and joyful. Jinren Luo was very worried. He wanted to test the Qiao family several times, but Chun Ong had kindly advised him not to rush to his death and disrupt Riverstyx's plan. According to Mingyi's calculation, since the Qiao family had such a big event, all parties related to the Qiao family would come to test them. Now the Qiao family's archenemy, Wang Ming and the others, had arrived. The giant smuggling merchants who were like the Qiao family to the north of Jindi had also invited the yellow-clothed youth and immortal Luo, who unexpectedly came to the righteous faction. The only thing missing was the most important party in Riverstyx's plan, the Jiannu, who was in contact with Qiao Ci. Now that the Jiannu had kidnapped a large number of people and the north borderline was sealed, how could the bitter and cold Liaobei support so many people? Now that the Jindi merchants' smuggling channel was like the Jiannu's lifeline, how could no one come to investigate the Qiao family? According to Mingyi's calculation, this person should have arrived here before noon. As the time approached, immortal Luo became more and more uneasy. He asked in a low voice, "Taoism peer, I see that the face of the golem on the Qiao's fort is getting clearer and clearer, and there's a red chi surrounding the head of the golem. I'm afraid that it's not long before the golem inside is refined into magic." Mingyi explained, "The demon statue is a formation, and the red chi is a kind of magic. Fellow cultivator, don't be fooled by the appearance. The formation has already been completed, and it's just waiting for us to come to him so that he can focus on dealing with it. As for the magic refined by the red chi, it should be completed at noon. At that time, the red chi will flow in, and the evil person will have to release the formation to guide the red chi into his body. At that time, the formation will be at its weakest, and the evil person will not be able to divert his attention. That will be the best time for us to break the formation. Otherwise, we will be trapped by the evil person's demonic formation. Luo thought for a moment and secretly calculated. He then sighed and said, "Fellow Taoist, you are cautious. I was too impatient." The youth in yellow finally looked at River Styx. However, he felt that River Styx had stolen his face. He snorted coldly and turned his head away, trying his best to show his disdain. Wang Ming secretly stared at River Styx and asked Fate Creation Boy in his ocean of consciousness, "Boy, why do I feel that this person is familiar, but I have never seen him before?" Chenong did not expect Wang Ming to have such a spiritual sense. Even a mighty celestial immortals could not calculate the relationship between them. However, Wang Ming was able to detect a problem with an inexplicable feeling. The mysteries of karma were indeed wonderful. Chun Ong immediately said in his ocean of consciousness, "You can't afford to offend this person. Just stay away from him. Now focus on dealing with Xiao Si." He also made up his mind to kill his whole family and practice magic to deal with you. Now, he has become powerful and his mana is far beyond yours. Even though Wang Ming was no longer a stupid youth, he could not help but feel depressed after hearing this. He thought to himself, "I have worked hard for more than 2 years to practice my mana. It is hard to describe how difficult it was. It was only with the help of a fate creation treasure like you and many opportunities that I got to where I am today. How can a mortal surpass me in less than a month?" Fate Creation Boy said calmly, "If you are willing to be ruthless and sacrifice hundreds of your whole family to the extraterrestrial demon, I can make you surpass him in a short time. Moreover, you don't need to be controlled by the extraterrestrial demon. You only need to be my servant." Wang Ming did not answer. Fate Creation Boy advised him, "Don't feel that this is unfair. Think about the others. Jinren Luo has cultivated for more than 200 years, but his mana is similar to yours. You can pinch that boy in yellow to death. He has been cultivating for 14 years, which is 7 times as long as you. How do you compare to them?" Wang Ming said in surprise, "How old is he? He has been cultivating for 14 years? Fate Creation Boy said calmly, "He entered the Tao at 2 years old. I even know some people who started cultivating in their mother's womb. These were all unorthodox sects. Which of the geniuses chosen by the orthodox Xianmen were not endowed with wisdom and immortal materials that had been cultivated for generations? You haven't met a second-generation disciple who has reincarnated several times and became an individual immortal at the age of 9. Even if everyone here attacked him together, they might not be his match. Are you so ashamed that you want to commit suicide?" Wang Ming suddenly had an idea and said, "Do you think everyone here, including the boy in black?" Fate Creation Boy pondered for a long time. Wang Ming knew that his plan was right. There must be something fishy about the boy in black. Fate Creation Boy said, "Fine, I'll tell you a little. A few days ago, the turbulence of the chi of tribulation overseas had something to do with this person. He is one of the 2 main characters of the C.I. opening tribulation of the 4 Cs. He is the leader of the demonic path, the blood demon, and the extraterrestrial demon. I'm afraid that the demon in the Chiao family fort is just a chess piece. I wonder who he is plotting against." Wang Ming frowned and said, "We'd better not get involved in this old demon's mess. I'm not afraid of Xiao Si, but I'm afraid that he will plot against me secretly. I won't even be able to escape." When River Styx heard the words "old demon," he had already made up his mind. The devil chi released by the skeletal demon increased by 30%. He gave Xiao Si a spell that could make Wang Ming suffer. River Styx had always been generous and not a narrow-minded person. He just wanted to train Wang Ming. Fate Creation Boy smiled faintly and warned him, "Xiao Si's fate is linked to yours. If he doesn't die this time, you will be able to kill him. If he doesn't die this time, his fate will definitely increase. Correspondingly, your fate will decline. You will be defeated by him several times. I'm afraid you will die in his hands. You know the path of the main character. You can advance but not retreat. You can be arrogant, but you can't be afraid. If you want to help Xiao Si, the son of destiny, to endure humiliation and take revenge, you can let him go." Hearing this, Wang Ming no longer hid the murderous intent in his eyes. He said fiercely, "My fate still needs to hide from my family. How can I let him go? I'm a lone star, a lone star. Ha ha. In order to pursue Taoism, I lost 5 things and 3 things. If you didn't use your fate to hide the influence of my fate, I'm afraid my fate would be terrible. I still don't know. Is it worth it? Xiao Si must die." Chapter 5:27. These 2 people were only the vanguard. Behind them came a dozen more knights, led by a young man wearing armor, Jian Nu. He sat on a red dragon steed. He did not go near Zhenren Luo and the others, but stopped a few miles away. The young man Jian Nu did not seem to practice spells, but he was skilled in martial arts. Looking at them from afar, his eyes were bright, and it was obvious that he was close to mastering martial arts. The few people following behind him seemed to be his attendants, and they were also martial artists. They whispered into the young man, Jian Nu's ear, "Master, with your noble status, it's better not to get close to those Han people who know spells. Just let the servants do everything." The young man Jian Nu also had some courage and shouted, "This time we followed Great Master Gaeldan Shiludu. How can we be afraid? The Qiao family is just a dog raised by our golden warriors. We're not afraid when they are alive, so what is there to worry about when they are dead? As for those Han people who know spells, our golden warriors have conquered the Han lands several times and captured their people. Last time, even their capital was almost destroyed, but we did not see their masters come out. Although the Han people are very smart, they are cowardly and have no courage. They are the natural servants of our warriors. I am a 14th Baile, the Golden Warrior's Baruto. What do I have to fear?" When he said that, he intentionally waved his horsewhip in the direction of Zhenren Luo, showing his contempt. He spoke in Manchu, and although he was not far away, Zhenren Luo did not hear him clearly, thinking that he was just greeting him. In a humble manner, he slightly bowed, which was considered a half salute, and the knights following behind him laughed wildly. Those barbarian knights who could not even recognize words laughed and spoke in their tribe's dialect. They said everything, and their words were full of insults. The few priests and barbarian masters dressed as wizards also laughed together, but they still knew the power of the Central Plains Qi cultivators, so they did not dare to say anything directly. Wang Ming naturally understood the barbarian language. When he heard their words, he could not help but turn pale. He pulled the reins gently and signaled the horses to fall back with his eyes. His right hand was placed on the he-feather sword at his waist. It was obvious that he was ready to kill. The barbarian monk floating in the air had been paying attention to him. When he saw this, he pressed down the cloud and stood in front of Wang Ming. At this moment, even if Zhenren Luo was a fool, he knew that these Tartars did not have good intentions, and what they said was not good either. Even though his face was ashen, he still forced himself to persuade. They are only a group of ordinary people. Right now, the important matter of exterminating the demon is more important. You must not cause trouble, lest you ruin the important matter. Seeing that Wang Ming's flattery was about to move, he hurriedly stopped him. "Fellow Taoist, please consider the bigger picture. You mustn't argue with these barbarians. Our Central Plains is a land of etiquette. We have our own tolerance." Wang Ming's face couldn't help but turn red as he shouted, "Go to hell with the big picture. Don't all the dukes in the imperial court use this as an excuse to let those Tartars kidnap the people of our Central Plains? People like you keep saying that you should consider the big picture and sacrifice the lives of millions of people in Jili, Hunan, Shandong, and other places to protect their glory, splendor, wealth, and rank. When it comes to their interests, it will be an unforgivable crime, and even 100 deaths will not be enough to excuse it. At this time, why don't you think about the big picture? For the big picture of the Great Ming Dynasty, I think it's best to kill 80% of the world's rich and powerful officials. I can't wait to eradicate all of you stupid insects. I only hate that I don't have enough power to reverse the situation and rebuild it." His scolding almost caused Zhenren Luo to fall out with him on the spot. Even though Zhenren Luo had a good temper, he couldn't help but blush with shame and anger. He glared fiercely at Wang Ming and said, "Boy." Then he waved his sleeves and stepped aside, no longer stopping him. The young girl following behind Jinren Luo couldn't help but scold. My grandfather stopped you out of goodwill. They have so many people over there. You're just going to die if you go alone. You really don't know what's good for you. At this time, Wang Ming had already galloped away on his horse. The young girl shouted at his back, We are cultivators. How can we use spells to kill mortals? Before he could finish his sentence, one of the Tuchuo descended a dark cloud and threw out a cloud of fire, which covered the sky and covered the earth towards Wang Ming. With a loud hum, a ray of yellow light came out from Wang Ming's aperture of nostrils. With just one light, the barbarian monk lost his balance on the cloud and almost fell down. The fire burned towards Wang Ming, but it was taken away by a gourd on his body. In a flash, he was already close to the barbarian monk. A white light shot out from his waist. He wielded the crane feather sword and controlled the sword light to attack the barbarian monk. At this time, the barbarian monk was affected by the desolate divine light released by the mysterious yellow worm. He felt dizzy and felt his temples swelling, and his heart was filled with warning. He quickly shouted, Bo Erjin, save me. The demon beside him raised his demon banner, and a gust of evil wind blew towards Wang Ming with black sand. Wherever it went, the vegetation turned black, and the insects turned into pus. It was obvious that it was also highly poisonous. Wang Ming wielded the mysterious yellow worm and made it hover above his head. The yellow light came down to protect him, and he continued to attack the barbarian monk. At this time, the other demons also reacted. The barbarians behind the 14th ballet shouted, How dare you? You're courting death. They also slapped the gourd on their waist and either spat out a black fork or released a poisonous smoke, all of them attacking Wang Ming. At the side, River Styx had been watching the battle for a long time. He wanted to test Wang Ming's ability a little, and when he saw the situation, he secretly activated Demon Corpse Xiao Ci's murderous nature. A circle of blood light also appeared behind his head, and it followed the force of the netherworld and the void to attack. At this time, the demon god statue in the sky above Xiao Fortress suddenly solidified and turned into a black cloud that covered the sky and earth. Xiao Ci's resentful roar came from inside. Wang Ming, you've caused me to be like this. I'm going to refine you into a living corpse, and you'll never be able to reincarnate. He didn't distinguish between friend and foe, and he sucked all the people around him into the formation. He laughed madly. All of you, turn into my blood food. River Styx used this chance to use the black gas to cover himself, using it to fall into the Qiao fortress. The other people couldn't stand still and were covered by the 7 fiend corpse formations death, cold, yang, blood, demon, and ghost chi. Endless demonic thoughts appeared in front of them, and when they were hooked by the evil chi, their souls wanted to leave their bodies. When they breathed in, there was a fishy and fragrant smell. Just smelling it made their souls feel dizzy, and their bodies almost stiffened to death. They had no choice but to be wrapped up in the 7 fiend corpse formation. The group of Jiannu Knights received the most attention from Chenong, and they directly fell into the encirclement of the several hundred corpses. After 2 rounds, several people were torn to pieces, and the corpses chewed on their guts and brains. Only the 14th ballet was protected by 2 demons with magic power. Although he was scared to the point of going crazy, he was still able to hold on. River Styx divided a bit of his attention to manage the situation in Qiao Fortress, but most of his attention was focused on Yuan-Tu and Avicii's 2 swords flying 1,000 miles away. He followed the spirit energy that was protecting the 14th ballet's group to kill them. Chapter 528. In the blink of an eye, Yuan-Tu and Avicii traveled 100 miles. Following the guidance of River Styx's divine sense, they turned into a waterfall and landed in a big city 1,000 miles away. The city was built on the black soil, and its style was different from that of the Han Dynasty. The people in the city all had pigtails that resembled a golden rat's tail. River Styx's flying sword fell, and with just one strike, a house that was decorated like a mansion was crushed into pieces. The nobles and servants inside were all killed by this strike. The Jiannu nearby were terrified, and they all ran away. Although River Styx's strike was only a small test, its power was not to be underestimated. In such a big mansion, even the green stones on the steps were chopped into fist-sized pieces. In the whole mansion, only the main hall was protected by a layer of Buddha's aura. A barbarian language was heard from inside. Junior from the Central Plains. How dare you do this to me? How dare you assassinate the Lord? I will not let you do as you wish. When River Styx heard his words, he vaguely denied that he was the one who attracted the two flying swords. He knew that he had failed in his duty. If the Lord knew that he was the one who attracted River Styx, he would probably lose trust in him. Many of the wives and children of the Jiannu's royal family were in the destroyed mansion. If they died because of it, he would be in trouble. However, if River Styx was here to assassinate the Lord, it was reasonable for the barbarian monk to react slower. In this way, he could protect the Lord, and not only would he not be at fault, but he would also be meritorious. Although it was normal for him to scheme like this, he would also lose the bearing of a cultivator, especially a demon. One should know that a real demon never hid himself, and he would not care about a mere Jiannu's lord. If River Styx was in his shoes, he would definitely tell the truth, and if the Lord showed any dissatisfaction, he would kill him immediately. The cruelty of the heavenly demon was even worse than that of the emperor. Thunder and rain were all demons' kindness. It was his honor to die for old devil River Styx. It would be a mistake not to be deeply grateful, and he even dared to be dissatisfied. He immediately mocked Meng Qi in the barbarian language. Damn bald donkey, I can feel that your psyche is constantly sweeping in front of me, which annoys me. Therefore, I'm taking revenge and sending you back to heaven. Hurry up and kneel down to thank me, so that my flying sword can cut off your head and release you to heaven. The barbaric monk sneered and said, How dare you frame me in front of His Highness? It's a pity that I've already cast a restriction on the main hall. Even if you shout at the top of your lungs from the outside, you won't be able to send a single sound in. It's useless no matter what you say. After saying that, a Buddhist staff turned into a flood dragon and flew out of the hall, fighting with the two swords in the air. The barbaric monk purposely split a wisp of Buddha's aura to project the scene in the sky into the main hall for His Highness to see. River Styx's two flying swords turned into a ray of sword light. In an instant, the two of them controlled their flying swords and exchanged dozens of blows. River Styx's swords were fierce, and his swordsmanship was superb, which surprised the monk. If it wasn't for River Styx intentionally holding back and the barbaric monk being here, which made it easy for him to control his treasured weapons, he would have been defeated long ago. Even so, the barbaric monk still waved his Buddha's aura majestically, as if he had the upper hand. River Styx sat thousands of miles away and used his primordial spirit to perform his swordsmanship, controlling his sword light to attack the main hall. In just a few rounds, he had already figured out the barbaric monk's background. He thought to himself, the Buddha's aura of that group of monks is the most annoying. Once it's unleashed, it's like a turtle shell, which takes a lot of effort. Otherwise, when I split my sword light, I would have taken advantage of the flaw in his swordsmanship and killed his corporeal body. Now that he has the Buddha's aura, even though it's not difficult to defeat him, it's impossible to kill him. I might have to reveal some of my true abilities to get rid of this person. This dragged on for quite a long time. On the other side, the Yin soldiers and devil corpses of Qiao family fortress were slaughtering, killing the 14 Baile until he was all alone. Wang Ming, Taoist Master Luo, and his grandson were also surrounded by danger. Those few demon monks and heretics were left, and now those who were alive were trembling with fear, while those who were dead were chewed by the corpse soldiers, dripping with blood. It was extremely cruel. At this moment, the whole city of Jiannu saw a ray of bloodlight fighting with the flood dragon Buddha staff. They recognized the flood dragon and knew that it was the staff of an eminent monk in the city. The barbaric monk had performed in front of them. Now that they saw the staff, they thought that the barbaric monk was fighting against the devil, so they knelt down and started chanting Buddhist scriptures. The The people of Jiannu did not know how to read books. In the past, they were still savages in the mountains, so they were even more pious than the people of the Central Plains. Their sincere thoughts turned into a force of psyche power and went into the Buddha's aura of the barbaric monk. It made the Buddha's aura grow by 30%. The barbaric monk sensed the replenishment of the psyche power. He suddenly felt that his mana was not as strong as before, and his cultivation experience had improved. He knew that it was the help of the people in the city with an unknown force of psyche power. Therefore, he did not hesitate to use his mana to release the Buddha's aura, creating many illusions such as Sanskrit chanting, heavenly flowers falling from the sky, golden lotuses emerging from the ground, and many other illusions. There was even a Buddha statue that looked exactly the same as him, standing up and singing all kinds of scriptures. If it were other cultivators, the river Styx could kill them with a flip of his hand if he wanted to waste his mana to bewitch the people. However, the bald donkeys of the Buddhism sect kept saying that the 6 senses of a monk were pure and untainted by worldly thoughts. Each of them was very ostentatious. With his encouragement, the barbarians of Jiannu became even more pious. They kowtowed with all their might, wishing that they could use their blood to help the Buddha subdue the devil. With the help of the psyche power, the empty frame created by the barbaric monk was replenished by the psyche power and had an extraordinary power. The whole city was filled with the Buddha's voice. The whole city was connected and emitted boundless Buddha's aura, blocking the 2 flying swords of the river Styx outside. The river Styx was not angry. Instead, he laughed and said, "Stupid bald donkey, if you didn't use this trick of bewitching people, I wouldn't be able to do anything to you. However, since you have such an idea, aren't you courting death? When it comes to bewitching and manipulating people's hearts, there are still people who can surpass me in this world." He shook the celestial demon drawing. Countless stray thoughts, devils, and heavenly devils sensed all living beings. The demonic thoughts turned into stubborn and superstitious thoughts, turning the whole city of Jiannu people into believers that the heavenly devils sensed. The heavenly devils turned into gods and Buddhas in their imagination. They secretly guided, twisted, and implicated their beliefs into themselves. Instantly, the celestial demon drawing was filled with countless stubborn psyche power. River Styx did not accept it. Instead, he continued to send the Buddha's aura to the barbaric monk, causing his aura to increase by 30%. Countless devils and 36 heavenly devils were refining him at the same time. The barbaric monk did not know how strong he was and accepted the psyche power. Unknowingly, his mana increased rapidly and suddenly broke through his original state. 36 circles of Buddha's aura appeared behind his head. River Styx performed his sword skills and created all kinds of ferocious heavenly devils. He even released the 72 heavenly devils to attack the city. In reality, he was only putting on a show. Otherwise, if he really used his mana, he would be able to destroy the city in an instant. However, the Jiannu people in the city did not know this. They saw the barbaric monk as the reincarnation of Buddha. In reality, the barbaric monk's spiritual wisdom had turned into a bit of devil psyche. The heavenly devils in his consciousness had turned into flying heavens and Buddhas. They were chanting scriptures for him at the same time. His psyche power and mana increased by leaps and bounds, causing him to be even more immersed in it. His root of wisdom was completely lost. After a while, he was refined by river Styx into a celestial demon on the celestial demon drawing. His consciousness was wiped out. Chapter 529. The several hundred corpses in the Qiao family fort formed a large formation surrounding a group of people. Everyone did not care about the difference between good and evil, barbarians and men. They just barely managed to deal with them together. From time to time, there would be shamans and demons with weaker magic power being caught by the corpses and being torn into pieces and eaten. They looked at the 9-foot-tall Qiao behind the corpses with his body covered in scales, a green face and fangs. That 14 Baile loudly shouted, "Qiao, you really dare to kill me? You have to know that the lives of your family are in the hands of the big gold. If you kill me, the Buddhas in the tribe will not let you go. If you pledge allegiance to the big gold and help me with your skills, I will guarantee your family's wealth. Even if you want to eat people, this king has countless Han people to give you clothes. As long as you don't harm my people, you can eat as much as you want on the Great Ming battlefield. He heard Xiao Si give a cold laugh and say, "My family has been eaten by me. What can you do for them? I'm tired of being a dog. Now I want to be a man. Wait until I refine this burning sun blood fiend and won't be afraid of the true sun fire. Then I can lead my men to run amok in the day. This great Ming world will become my corpse country. How can a lowly female slave like you have a right to speak? At that time, I will take your head and use it as my chamber pot." 14 Bailey struggled and said, "You're delusional. Xiao Si, don't think that just because you have some trifling evil magic power, you can run amok in the world. You have to know that my tribe has countless Buddhas with great magic power. Each of them can kill you like chicken." Xiao Si only gave a cold laugh. He suddenly raised the white bone statue and infatuatedly said, "You think I don't know that there are countless experts in this world? But I have the heavenly demon form that the Mahesvara son of heaven gave me. As long as I sacrifice the statue, I can be bestowed with countless powerful magic powers. I can even control those powerful demons in the sky beyond heaven. They have even bled gods and Buddhas. They have eaten Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. As long as I turn this world into a demon domain, I can also become a demon. How can a mere mortal cultivator stop me?" Along with his maniacal laughter, the white-bone demon statue's demonic voice rang out. Countless naked goddesses and ferocious heavenly demons, who were in the form of anger, joy, fear, and mercy, surrounded 36 heavenly demons and 72 ferocious demon statues. Above them, there was a vague shadow of endless horror and karma. Even the gods and Buddhas were crying and wailing under his feet. Everyone knew that this was probably the great freedom heavenly demon king. Even though it was just a shadow, they didn't have any thoughts of resisting. Any one of those devil statues could kill over 1 million of them. It was as if just a bit of their aura would be able to crush them into dust. Jinren Luo cried, "It's a demonic tribulation. Fellow Taoists, this is the true devil tribulation. A tribulation that has never happened in this world." He spat out blood as he calculated. "Xiao Si is not trying to scare us. I've desperately calculated for a chance. If we can't get rid of this demon today, the central mainland and even the earth realm and the human world will be reduced to hell." Xiao Si laughed wildly, praying for the support of the heavenly demons from all directions. Suddenly, his demonic power increased by 30%, forcing everyone to wish they were dead. Even Wang Ming was frantically shouting for Fate Creation Boy in his sense of perception. "Fate Creation Boy! Fate Creation Boy!" Fate Creation Boy replied coldly, "Host, what are you doing? Is Xiao Si telling the truth? Are those devil shadows really the great freedom heavenly demon? Is our world really going to encounter a great tribulation? Fate Creation Boy, how can you still be so calm at this time?" Fate Creation Boy sneered. "It's just a demonic tribulation of a boundless world. I've seen all kinds of big scenes when I was following the Lord of Apocalypse. So what if it's the great freedom heavenly demon? He destroys countless worlds every day. It's just a normal thing. Is it worth my concern? Just cultivate honestly. By the time the heavenly demon descends, you'll have already ascended. Why should you care about this?" Wang Ming muttered, "This is my hometown, the world I was born in. How can I not care about it? And just wait and see. There are countless people behind this world. The great freedom heavenly demon will not succeed." Fate Creation Boy only said this and did not answer Wang Ming's question. As a red light slowly seeped down from the sky, Xiao Si swallowed it in big mouthfuls. His demonic body gradually grew countless black scales, and the bone spurs on his head slowly turned into horns. He began to transform like the demons in the devil shadows. The evil corpses also transformed their bodies one by one, giving birth to countless ferocious faces. A corpse army of servants slowly approached the demonic army. Everyone was scared out of their wits at this moment. They all knew that once Xiao Si completed his transformation and cultivated into a day-traversing devil corpse, everyone present would die. The yellow-clothed youth cried, "I don't want to die. I don't want to be eaten by the devil corpse." He no longer cared about what was in front of him. He crushed a talisman, turned into a yellow light, and fled. In just a moment, he was caught by the giant devil shadow, formed by corpse chi in the air. It crushed him into countless pieces of flesh and blood that rained down. Everyone was even more terrified. Suddenly, countless halberds appeared in the hands of the evil corpses. They were all formed by demonic chi. They whistled and hooked toward the crowd. A few heretical people could not dodge in time and were hooked by the long halberds. River Styx, Wang Ming, and Taoist Luo controlled their flying swords and protected Taoist Luo's granddaughter. The barbarian monk and the most powerful heretical person protected 14th Ballet. Taoist Luo said sadly, "God, it's fine if I die. Why did my granddaughter get caught?" He was filled with guilt and could not speak. He angrily cried into the sky, "Luo, your grandfather should not have brought you here." The girl's eyes were filled with tears and she sobbed, "Luo, don't blame grandfather. I was the one who insisted on coming here." Taoist Luo turned to Wang Ming and said, "Taoist friend, I stopped you just now and refused to give you face. Now that you have forgiven me and come to help my granddaughter, it is a great kindness. Today, I still want to ask you for a favor." "Sir, please speak." Wang Ming took the time to comfort him in the midst of his anxiety. "Taoist friend, please take my granddaughter and escape. I am willing to risk my life to create an opportunity for you. With my Yin spirit cultivation, I will use my lifespan to turn my flesh and blood into divine lightning. It should be enough to open a gap. When the demon transforms, the demonic formation that covers the entire castle will be slowed down. At that time, I will open a path for you, and you can take her away." Wang Ming nodded, "I will not disappoint you." Just as the two sides reached an agreement, Xiao Si had already swallowed the red energy. Suddenly, his body swelled up and his eyes turned red. The moment that Taoist Luo had been waiting for was about to appear. Everyone was desperately accumulating energy. At this moment, Xiao Si suddenly laughed. "You were waiting for me to transform? Unfortunately, I have already completed my transformation." "Huh, how can you mortals imagine the power of sky demon magic?" Chapter 530. The 14 Balei's heart was pierced through. He should have died 10 times out of 10 times. But in this 7 baleful Yin corpse formation, besides the 7 kinds of baleful energy, the corpse energy was the most abundant. This Jin Kingdom Prince's chest was pierced by the halberd made of demon energy, and large amounts of corpse energy entered his chest, corroding his heart. It seemed to be a coincidence that the Yin corpse holding the halberd did not pull out the halberd, but just happened to pause for a few breaths. When the morale turned into white hair and wrapped around the 14 Balei's body, he pulled out the halberd and threw his corpse to the side. Seeing the 14 Balei's ashen face and the unwilling spiritual sense that remained on the corpse, River Styx nodded slightly. He secretly controlled the 7 baleful Yin corpse formation to pour the baleful energy and corpse energy into his body, slowly cleansing his body. Even his soul that had left his body was invaded by the heavenly demon clone that descended from the demon god diagram, silently merging with it. At this time, Xiao Si's face became even redder. The red hair on his body was like a raging fire. His height increased by a large amount. On his spine, 13 bone spikes pierced through his skin, sticking to his back. The corpse energy and baleful energy gathered by the Yin corpse formation were controlled by him like they were his arms, adding to his body, the demon energy rising. At this time, River Styx's plan had mostly succeeded. After Xiao Si's experiments, Dorgan, who had fused with the heavenly demon detection, was even more cruel than him. Not only would his intelligence not decrease after being refined into a demon corpse, but because he fused with the heavenly demon, he would become even more vicious and cunning. The heavenly demon clone in the 9 heavens 10 earths formless demon god diagram was hundreds of millions, infecting most of the central planes, the billions of people in the Great Ming Dynasty and the surrounding small countries. The hearts of these treacherous people were sensed by the heavenly demon day and night. The 36 demon consciousnesses inside had long been trained to be as sinister as demons. Even the most vicious and cunning person in the world was not as powerful as them. Dorgan's true self was usurped by such a demon. The shrewdness in his heart, his treacherous heart, instantly increased by who knows how many times. His mind turned, and he thought of the 100 plans to kill Huang Taiji and usurp power. Now, he didn't have the slightest bit of humanity left in him. His heart was only filled with viciousness and cunning, and his soul was filled with nothing but burning greed and desire. The best part of human nature had already died along with the human body when the heavenly demon possession. Now he was the demon corpse king. Dorgan, from body to soul, had completely become a demon. Mingi refined Dorgan's body several times with Dharma power from the Blood River. After making sure that the refinement was successful, he withdrew his Dharma power and let Dorgan act according to the nature of the skyscraping devil. As for Qiao Si, it was no longer important what would happen to him. Slightly activating the fate creation boy in Wang Ming's ocean of consciousness, Wang Ming suddenly felt an inexplicable Dharma power. With a wave of his hand, there was a brilliant golden glow. He had no time to be surprised. He turned the crane feather sword into a sword beam and wrapped it around Jinren Luo and the others. Just as he was about to bring Mingi along, he saw Mingi smile and break free from the sword beam. He strolled into the Yin corpse formation. He had no time to be surprised. He turned into a conveyance light with all his strength, broke through the Qiao castle, and flew hundreds of miles away. While the Netherworld River was helping them to escape, the devil corpse Dorgan had already locked on to kill them. He slightly restrained his corpse energy, and with the innate magical power of the devil corpse king, he manipulated the evil corpse to fly his body to the vicinity of the brutal monk and the evil Taoist. The heavenly demon spirit had long known that his biggest enemy was not the corpse demon Qiao Si, nor the mysterious Taoist River Styx, but the brutal monk and the demon Taoist, who had witnessed him being severely injured. The identity of Dorgan was something he had to protect with his life. Therefore, the only two people who could expose him were Dorgan's biggest enemies. The brutal monk had already planned to retreat. However, he was afraid that he would not be able to explain himself after he lost Dorgan. When he saw Dorgan's corpse falling from the sky, he subconsciously took it back with his Dharma power. At this moment, only these three people were left among the unorthodox practitioners who followed Dorgan. Before the barbarian monk could see Dorgan's body clearly, he was attacked by a big hand that was as hard as black iron, which was right next to his body. The fingernails were as sharp as blades, piercing straight into his heart. Then, the surging corpse chi gushed in. Dorgan forced out 2 drops of corpse blood from his fingertips and poisoned the barbarian monk to death in an instant. The barbarian monk, who had just turned into a zombie, staggered backward with his body. When he was close to the demon Taoist, the brutal monk's zombie threw his corpse to the demon Taoist under Dorgan's control. In desperation, the demon Taoist only had time to shout, "Why did you throw it to me?" However, out of instinct, he still reached out to catch it. At this moment, Dorgan's iron-like claws suddenly pierced through his chest. It was risky to play such a trick at this time, so Dorgan directly jumped up and poured corpse chi into his 10 fingers. He used his palm like a knife and stabbed straight at the last person. The man was surrounded by Yin corpses from the outside and Dorgan from the inside. After a few rounds, he was hit by Dorgan's claws and fell into the group of Yin corpses, where he was eaten. River Styx watched as he rose and fell, and saw that he had killed 3 people. He could not help but secretly nod and think, "This is a good person." Then, the great responsibility of destroying the Jinnu clan will be yours. Since he had confirmed that Dorgan had such a good aptitude, it was useless to keep Qiao Si as a test subject. He flew into the air and said to Qiao Si, "Qiao Si, do you still recognize me?" As he said this, he dispersed the heavenly demon's divine sense. The demon corpse that Qiao Si had turned into suddenly came back to his senses. He He looked at River Styx and roared, "It's you?" His voice contained 120% disbelief, 80% bone-deep hatred, 90% deep fear, and 50% unforgettable memory. It was as if the moment he saw River Styx, the tyranny in his heart increased by 10 times. The reason that had been blinded by the heavenly demon suddenly returned to him. The demonic nature of his body faded away, revealing all kinds of human nature. Looking around, the Chow family fortress was stained with blood, and most of it was in ruins. His lovely wife, filial son, brothers, parents, and even a family business, the great ambition in his heart, and the dream of reviving the family had all been turned into white bones and ashes in his hands. Looking at himself, his body was covered with scales and horns, and his face was ferocious. Although he had a lot of power, he did not look like a human or a ghost. Thinking back to the past, Xiao Si still did not understand. He immediately flew into a rage, and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He roared with endless hatred and resentment. "You harmed me. You harmed me." A demonic fire of resentment burned in his soul. Even the iron of the 9 regions would find it difficult to cast this great hatred. 2 drops of blood flowed down from the corners of his cracked eyes. On the face of the ferocious-looking demonic corpse, the 2 lines of blood tears made him look like a hungry ghost from hell. River Styx smiled and said, "Benefactor Xiao, thank you for your help." With a wave of his hand, the hundreds of corpses around him flew up and turned into a black dragon that drilled into a flower scroll in his hand. Looking at Xiao Si's bitter struggle, River Styx smiled and said, "Benefactor Xiao, your soul was originally just a piece of trash. Thanks to my skillful hands, you have this endless hatred, and the blood curse on your family. Now, it is time for me to reap the rewards. I will not let you go even if I become a ghost," Xiao Si said through gritted teeth. However, he could not even move, much less resist River Styx. River Styx shook his head slightly. "Mr. Xiao, you will not even have the chance to become a ghost. Once you enter my demon diagram, you will never be reincarnated." Xiao Si roared into the sky. His resentment actually broke free for a moment. Seeing River Styx's confident smile, Xiao Si only had time to do the only thing that he thought could harm River Styx. He gathered all the power he could control and turned it into a long attack. It broke the white bone statue beside him into pieces. After that attack, he could no longer control himself and fell into the demon god diagram in River Styx's hand. One of the pieces of the white bone statue hit the demonic corpse Dorgan, who was pretending to be dead. It dived into his skull. River Styx did not seem to care about the white bone statue. He only picked up a few of the bigger pieces and floated away. One could faintly hear him reciting a strange tune as he left. "I planted a seed, and it has finally borne fruit. Today is a great day." Chapter 531. With the help of Fate Creation Boy's Dharma power, Wang Ming successfully flew away. A long rainbow was extremely fast. In a flash, it had traveled 100 miles. When it reached a place far away from Xiao Si, the conveyance light landed, revealing a few frightened people. Taoist Luo had thought that he would definitely die, but he did not expect this to happen so quickly. He was still in a daze. When the cold wind blew, he woke up with a jolt. When he saw Wang Ming, he bowed and said, "Junior Taoist Luo, thank you for saving my life." Wang Ming knew that he had misunderstood and could not help but smile bitterly. "You must be joking. If I really had such Dharma power, I would not have allowed Xiao Si to be so arrogant. This conveyance light is just a talisman given by my master. If Xiao Si comes again, I can only wait for death." The existence of Fate Creation Boy was Wang Ming's top secret. He knew that if he revealed it, cultivators who were thousands of times stronger than Xiao Si would come after him. Therefore, he fabricated a non-existent master to cover up this matter. It was not wrong to say that Fate Creation Boy was half a master to him. Now that he had calmed down, Wang Ming had the time to question Fate Creation Boy in his sea of consciousness. "Boy, you have always ignored these things. Even when I was in a life-threatening situation, you would not easily help me. Why is it different this time?" Xiao Si should not be a threat to you. But why does that person want to make things difficult for us? Fate Creation Boy shook his head and said, not only will he not make things difficult for you, I think he admires you very much. Xiao Si is just a puppet. I'm afraid that his fate will be terrible. You guys are not in danger. I'm afraid that he will give you benefits to train you. Wang Ming was even more confused and asked, if so, why did you break the rules and help him? Fate Creation Boy sneered. Do you think it is so easy to take advantage of that old demon? Think about it carefully. When Xiao Si was still alive, did he also admire him? You were hit by Xiao Si's corpse gas 12 times in a row, and now your internal organs are about to be melted. If that old demon gives you something that can cure your internal injuries and improve your Dharma power, do you want it or not? Wang Ming was speechless. He heard Fate Creation Boy say, if you want the benefits, you can learn from Xiao Si's fate. If you don't want the benefits, do you think you can simply push away the will of such a devil? That was the most dangerous moment of your cultivation. If you die in a fight, I can protect you until your reincarnation. But if you die in the devil's hands, you won't even have the chance to reincarnate. Only then did Zhenren Luo Creation Master Luo Zhenren calm. He felt that something was wrong. He was confused. When he looked at Wang Ming's eyes, he was a little conflicted, as if he had something to say in his mouth. Everyone knew what he was thinking and was secretly amused. Lady Luo pulled Spiritual Master Luo and said, Grandfather, it's not that Senior Wang didn't bring him along, but he broke free from the conveyance light and escaped into the formation. Master Luo was greatly surprised. What about that fellow Taoist? Wang Ming sighed and explained, Taoist Master Luo, I'm afraid that the fellow cultivator you mentioned is the real demonic master. He can turn the clouds and rain with one hand. Xiao Si and I are old enemies. I knew that he went around asking for protection to get rid of me, but he was just a mortal before this month. How could he be as terrifying as he is now? I'm afraid he met an expert and received advice. Someone planted a demonic seed in him, allowing him to cultivate the copper-armored devil corpse body. With 500 Yin soldiers under his command, just how powerful is this group of demons? That person only planted a demonic seed, and he was able to harvest this group of corpse soldiers. Even Xiao Si himself was refined into a powerful fiend god. This kind of method is worthy of being called a majestic fiend god. Zhenren Luo's face turned pale when he heard this. He trembled slightly and said, what a devil, what a good trick. From the looks of it, he was very afraid. He pulled his granddaughter and left in a hurry. What happened today would probably become his heart demon for the rest of his life. River Styx naturally did not know that he had become someone's heart demon and had cut off his path of cultivation. Even if he knew, he would not care. Now that he had 2 sky demons in his hands, it was like a poisonous goo planted in the depths of Ho Jin's luck. When the sky demon was completely transformed and the goo hatched, the tens of millions of Jiannu's population would be burned to ashes. An incarnation of the sky demon Evil Buddha used the power of the sky demon to bewitch people and spread superstitious thoughts. A demon corpse king was extremely ambitious. He was planning to refine all of his troops into devil corpses and then expand to the soldiers under the bell banner. He wanted to use the power of the 8 flags devil corpses to change the world and build a country of demon corpses to control people with corpses. He released Xiao Si himself. Today, his endless resentment was refined into a demonic fire by magic. It was refined into a pure and deep resentment demonic fire. He could control it freely. The scales on his body had a faint silver glow. It was the body of a silver-armored devil corpse. It was more powerful than before, but its original self had dispersed. Now, it was only a demonic consciousness that obeyed Chun Eng's orders. Such a powerful devil corpse, which ordinary demonic cultivator did not spend countless spiritual medicine and painstakingly refine it for decades. Now that Chun Ong had done it in an instant, he did not need to spend much effort. Xiao Si brought his own dry rations to be a devil corpse. He even completed the refining of the spiritual medicine and the Yin land to raise the corpse by himself. He was really cute. River Styx ordered, Go kill all the people who colluded with you and sold provisions to the Jiannu. Then come and see me." He ordered him to take 200 soldiers and go into hiding. He continued to fly towards Liaodong. Along the way, he could see the bones of the common people. The laborers carried the rations on their backs. Under the custody of the Ming army, they pushed carts and horses towards Liaodong. Along the way, the fertile fields were abandoned. The white bones left behind by the Tartars were not buried and were scattered among the ruins. Many bustling towns were deserted. It was like the end of the dynasty. He thought of the prosperous scene of Jiangnan when he went out to sea in the past. River Styx's eyes were indescribable. The city of Jinzhou was surrounded by soldiers and armor. Other than the merchants who came and went, the security was very strict. This place was adjacent to the front line, and the military ruled over the people. Hence, the security was rather strict. However, there were still streets, restaurants, and places where merchants gathered. Moreover, the people who came and went had bright eyes, and their temples were bulging. It was obvious that they had extraordinary martial arts skills. It was a gathering place for chivalrous Jianghu warriors. River Styx showed a little of his martial arts skills, and not many people came to disturb him. However, the soldiers nearby were still in charge of surveillance. River Styx was so eye-catching that he quickly attracted the attention of some people. After a while, a young general led a patrolling army to block River Styx's path. He bowed to River Styx and said, "Taoist priest, my general invites you." "Oh." River Styx seemed surprised and said, "I am but a wandering Taoist priest. Why does the general invite me?" Chapter 532. River Styx heard this and was slightly stunned. He smiled and said, "The Guanning Iron Cavalry is indeed extraordinary. May I know who your esteemed general is?" The young general cupped his fists and said, "It is Sir Wu Xiang, the regimental commander. He received my report and ordered me to invite you. He is waiting at the regimental commander's residence. I hope that you will not decline." River Styx's primordial spirit was stealthily manipulating the heavenly secrets, leaving only one thought to respond. All the sky demon senses and heavenly secrets calculations were understood by the primordial spirit. This thought was only for communication and did not have many supernatural powers. That was why he still looked at the young general. He saw that he was in his early 20s and had a heroic bearing. He suddenly smiled and said, "I have only been here for a short while, and you have already reported to General Wu. It shows that you are trusted. May I know your name?" The young general was neither arrogant nor impatient. He still cupped his fists and said, "I am Wu Sangue. My courtesy name is Chongbo. General Wu is my father." It was already the 4th year of Chongjin, and it was the eve of the Battle of the Ling River. Zhu Dasho was probably already guarding against the Jinnu at the Ling River. No wonder the Jinzhou army was heavily guarded. A large amount of rations and fodder had been mobilized. Wu Xiang should have received orders to be ready to help Zhu Dasho at any time. In history, in this battle of besieging the enemy and attacking the reinforcements, the Ming army suffered many defeats. When Wu Xiang led 40,000 horse infantry to help the Ling River to help Zhu Dasho, he deserted at the last minute and was punished with demotion. Now the father and son must have felt the pressure. No wonder they used their position as the regimental commander to rope in cultivators. Under normal circumstances, they would avoid it. Using the position of an official to make friends with people outside of the secular world would easily cause people to think of feng shui and qi of fortune. This would then lead to rumors of the dragon vein and the qi of the emperor. This would be taboo for the civil officials in the court and even the emperor. Only when the arrow was knocked on the bowstring would they make such a bad decision. River Styx did not have a hobby of collecting historical figures. With his current level of cultivation, killing the emperor of Beijing was just a taboo. Even if Wu Sangue was in front of him, it was just a little strange. He did not think much of him at all. After thinking about it, River Styx smiled and said, "In that case, please lead the way, young general." Wu Sangue had seen a few cultivators along with his father. All of them were heartless and did not care about human etiquette. Initially, he had prepared a lot of words, but he did not expect River Styx to be so understanding. He was slightly disappointed. In his opinion, the greater the ability, the greater the temper. This black-clothed youth didn't have a temper, so he probably didn't have much ability. The father and son did not want to make friends with any immortals, nor did they covet the golden pill to live forever. This time, they invited someone because they had a request. If they invited someone without any ability, it would be in vain. Fortunately, he was experienced. No matter what he thought, he did not show it on his face. He continued to lead the way respectfully. After walking for a short distance, they arrived at Wu Zhuan's military headquarters. When they entered the main hall, there were already a few Jianghu heroes inside. 2 heretical men were waiting. River Styx saw his 3 disciples at first glance. Li Ning sat in a corner and calmly observed the many strange people in the main hall. When he saw River Styx walk over, his gaze froze, and he felt a faint sense of fear. He committed River Styx's appearance to memory, but his 2 sworn brothers beside him did not notice. River Styx's gaze swept over them, and he could tell that the 2 heretical men were only third-rate heretical men. The sharpest thing they had was the fine iron flying sword in their pouch. At most, they had the ability to control a sword for 100 steps. Even Li Ning did not think much of them. With the 3 brothers' unparalleled martial arts skills, they were not afraid of these heretical skills. The other martial arts masters were arrogant and disdainful. Other than being very respectful to the people of the military headquarters, they fought to curry favor with the 2 heretical men. The atmosphere was not friendly, and they looked down on each other. Li Ning and the other 2 were even pushed to a corner. Only the 2 heretical men were crowned at the top. Although Wu Sangue was not an ordinary person, he was still a bit young. He had some prejudice earlier, so he arranged for River Styx to sit at a place that was neither too far nor too close. Although he was still respectful, he was not as respectful as the 2 Taoist men before him. Everyone here was old and experienced. They had seen through Wu Sangue's little tricks and had looked down on River Styx. Even though there were people who wanted to curry favor with him, when the silver-robed Taoist priest saw that River Styx had just sat down casually and did not come forward to greet him, he snorted coldly, "Humph." He maintained his status and did not want to argue with River Styx. However, he also dispelled the other people's desire to befriend him. Only Li Ning, who was sitting next to River Styx, nodded slightly in greeting. After a while, Wu Zhuan still had not arrived. Only Wu Sangue came to apologize on behalf of his father. He said, "My father has received an urgent order from the imperial court and has to be delayed for a while. I have specially ordered him to come down and apologize. Please do not take offense and wait for a while." He then went to the back hall and asked for the best tea to be served to the guests. Seeing this, someone thought to himself, could it be that Master Wu has invited so many people, but he does not know who is truly capable and is hinting to us to show off? There are so many people here. How can I have the chance to show off? Why don't? He made up his mind and looked around for people to show off. He saw that the others were not to be trifled with. Only River Styx, Li Ning, and the others were sitting in a corner. He glanced at River Styx and immediately turned his gaze away. He felt that it was best not to provoke those mutants. He then looked at Li Ning and the other 2. Li Ning and the other 2 were known as the 3 heroes of Qilu and Lu, and were quite famous in Jianghu. But here, he was the only one who knew them well. That person was confident that his martial arts were far superior to Li Ning and the others. If the others were not experts of the same generation as him, then they were unknown and unfathomable. Such people were the most likely to cause trouble. It was better for someone like Li Ning, who had some reputation and knew his background, to show off his power. He immediately slammed the table and laughed coldly. I heard that some of the younger generation, with only a little bit of skill, were called the 3 heroes. How can such people, who deceive the world, be worthy of sitting with me? Hearing this, Li Ning, who was the oldest, was able to keep his composure. The youngest, Zhou Chun, could not hold it in any longer. He laughed and said, "May I know who is speaking? Have we brothers offended you in any way?" When the old man heard his brother mocking him for being unknown, he immediately took the opportunity to explode. He gathered his strength and lightly flicked the teacup in front of him. 2 scalding water droplets fell into his palm. He threw them out skillfully, and like steel pillars, they stirred up a sharp wind. At the same time, he shouted, "Who are you to interrupt when I'm speaking?" Even Li Ning could not hold back his actions. Zhou Chun used the mantra of Tian Luo's cunning way. With a twist of his hand, he caught the two water droplets in his hand. The strange qi of Tian Luo's cunning way circulated in his hand, and two spiraling yin and yang qi were injected into the water droplets. The water droplets immediately condensed into needles, and he threw them out. Yin and yang intersected silently, but their speed was 3 times faster than when they came. Chapter 533. That old man was also a veteran of the martial arts world. He had a nickname called the Iron Elder, which meant that this old man's hidden weapons were swift and fierce. When a pair of iron beads were thrown out, they were like rolling beads in a flowing cloud, making it impossible for people to defend against them. He used tea as rolling beads to show off his skills in front of Wu Sangui. Secondly, his hidden weapon skills were extraordinary. If he used the tea beads to hit Zhou Chun's eyes, he would be blinded. It was definitely not because he was soft-hearted and wanted to punish Zhou Chun a little. Zhou Chun was annoyed by the old man's ruthlessness. This time, he used 80% of his power to turn a soft and light water bead into a soft gold ball that carried a great force. When the old man caught the bead, the water bead exploded and shattered the old man's iron hands that were as tough as steel. The level of his martial arts and the ingenuity of his strength could be said to be earth-shattering. He had already entered the peak of the martial arts world. For a moment, no one in the hall dared to make a sound. The rest of the martial arts world and Jianghu heroes were all shocked. Elder Tai dared to steal the limelight. His martial arts skills were the highest among the group, but he couldn't even last one round and was defeated. The rest of the people didn't dare to sit still and let Elder Tai wail on the ground. These people were fine, but Zhou Chun's move had angered another person who wasn't a martial artist. The silver-robed Taoist cultivator's face was gloomy, as if he thought Zhou Chun didn't give him face. He suddenly sneered and said, "What a Jianghu's bridge. You're just a child's play in front of me. What an arrogant person." He took a sip of the hot tea and spat it out. The tea turned into rain and drizzled down, smearing onto Old Iron's palms. The tea seeped into the meridians of Old Iron's palms and dissolved the clotted blood in his neck. His palms turned as white as jade. Everyone here had keen eyesight. They could see that the blood clots on Elder Natai's palms had disappeared. His muscles and bones had been refined by the elixir. Not only were his injuries healed, but his martial arts skills would also be restored. If this old man's bones were a bit stronger, he would be able to use this opportunity to advance to the next level. Such a godly technique was enough to stun everyone. Their eyes even turned red as they thought to themselves, "What is a godly technique? This is a godly technique." Elder Tai looked at his palm that was enveloped by the cool air and was so moved that tears streamed down his face. He was also a tactful person and knew that this was a 1-in-a-million opportunity. He suddenly knelt down and kowtowed to the silver-robed Taoist, saying, "This old servant has received the help of Taoist, Master Taoist. You have practically saved my life. This lowly body of mine has no way to repay you, so I am willing to become a slave under Taoist, Master Taoist." This action greatly exceeded everyone's expectations. Someone whispered, "What a cunning old man. If he really managed to snatch away such a good opportunity, then what would a little bit of face count for? That old man would use this opportunity to curry favor with an expert, and his future achievements would probably be limitless. To have such an opportunity, it's really..." His tone was filled with jealousy that could not be concealed. Another person chimed in, "That's right. He really got off lightly." He secretly glanced at Li Ning and the other two and said in an even lower voice, "Look at the 3 heroes of Qilu. Their martial arts are top-notch, so what? With this opportunity, this Elder Tai has the hope of becoming an immortal in the future. I'm just afraid that when he returns to the mortal world after 180 years, the 3 heroes of Qilu would have already died so much that even their bones would have melted. Look at how he offended the Taoist, Master Taoist. I'm afraid that he won't have a good life in the future. It's not too late to beg for forgiveness now." Another person whispered. In the blink of an eye, the situation had changed. Elder Tai, who had originally humiliated himself, had suddenly become rich. The three heroes of Chilu, who were originally shocked, seemed to have no future. The silver-robed Taoist's face revealed an arrogant expression of having great power and the ability to control life and death. It was obvious that he was extremely pleased with himself. Even a blind person could see that he looked at everyone else as if they were ants. However, no matter what these people of the martial arts world thought, they all had a fawning expression on their faces. This made the Taoist, Master Taoist, seem to be even more superior. River Styx watched coldly from the side. He had seen the inside story of the Taoist, Master Taoist spell. It was not a powerful technique, but he had used an illusion spell to fool the mortals here. When he was drinking tea, he had stuffed a blood circulation pill into his mouth and then cast a sweet rain incantation. With Chun Ang's mana, the sweet rain incantation was enough to revive the dead and reverse yin and yang. It was a supreme supernatural power, but the Taoist master could not even summon a drop of the sweet rain incantation. He had to use tea as an excuse. The sweet rain incantation only had the effect of turning tea into water. It was clear that not only was his supernatural power ordinary, his mana was also very heterogeneous. In order to show off his power, he had probably used the sweet rain incantation as his trump card. However, it was not a loss to gain a servant who was highly skilled in martial arts. 70 to 80% of the people at the table were trying to please the Taoist master. People like River Styx, the three gallants of Qi, and Lu were particularly eye-catching. The silver-robed Taoist Master Taoist was very displeased. He took out a scroll and shouted at the three gallants of Qi, Lu, and Lu, coldly, "I cannot tolerate juniors like you who do not know the severity of the situation and act so viciously. I have a picture of all beings and phenomena. I will use it to test you. If you know how to repent and come to your senses, it will be fine. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for enforcing justice on behalf of heaven and crippling your martial arts." Zhou Chun and the other two were Chun Ang's disciples. What kind of tricks had they not seen? When they killed Mao Tai and Long Fei, Little and and Chen Ang's tricks were more than 1,000 times better than this Taoist master's. Even the sweet rain incantation pill that Chen Ang gave them and Little and it gave them later on could kill this Taoist master in 2 rounds. Where did he get his arrogance from? When River Styx heard this, he thought to himself, "Does an ant like you have the right to teach my disciple a lesson?" Fortunately, River Styx had always been magnanimous. He would never fuss over such a small matter. Those who offended River Styx had always died in the blink of an eye, and he had never purposely sought revenge. It was just that they were unlucky and got into a bloody disaster. Such was the fate of the world, and there was nothing they could do about it. The silver-robed Taoist master unfurled the picture of all beings and phenomena. River Styx laughed when he saw it. He thought to himself, "What an arrogant tone. I thought it was an incredible talisman that could control the reincarnation of all living beings and transform the mortal world. So it's just the along the river during the Qingming festival, painting with some rough illusions. My 9 heavens and 10 earths forms and formless celestial demon, painting doesn't even dare to call itself the picture of all beings of the heavenly demon, picture of all beings of the hell, or picture of all beings of the heavenly palace. I'm afraid even a martial artist with a bit of determination wouldn't be able to bewitch him with just a little bit of illusions." Wei yawned from a toad.